Yes, yes, y'all. It's another Saturday night. You know what it is. It's another Saturday night shoot the breeze. I want to thank everyone who will be tuning in tonight. Thank everyone who's going to be joining the discussion as panelists or from the chat. I want to thank all of you in the playback who listen to the playback. By the way, please drop some comments, especially you guys in the play who listen to the playback. Drop some comments. Let's further some of these discussions during the week. You know, we could do it in the comment section. So I want to thank everyone who's here. Before we begin, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit the like button. That means a lot to me. Also share the episodes, share the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you tend to congregate online, share it. I do appreciate when you do that. I see Pro Black Perspective was out in the chat saying peace, peace. So peace to him as well. You know what I like to do. I like to jump online before we officially start the show and let you know what we're discussing tonight. So we're going to answer several questions, one of which is Tanya TKO correct about Nigerians? I thought that was interesting, an interesting rant. We're going to answer if Whitey can infiltrate U.S. media establishment. Why don't we? We're going to try to answer the question, should we team up with the Western power and European powers to sue Africa for reparations? They allegedly did the same to us. That's going to be an interesting conversation. I saw this video. I saw the beginnings of it. I thought it was quite ridiculous. But a youth was saying drinking water is unnatural. So we're going to try to answer, is that truth or pseudo? Finally, we're going to try to answer the question, what should the continental and international language of African people be? Right? Talk about all these things tonight, time permitting. We'll end at 8 as we have been doing in recent times. So gather up all your people, share the link, bring some new folks in. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the show officially. On the other side, I'll introduce all the panelists and drop shoot the breeze. Topic number 1. Do stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
You know, I keep forgetting to play the spot midway through the show. I got to see if I have it queued up. But also check out Brother Bakari. He was on earlier today. Check out Realm in the Bush and Forecast, who were doing a show together last night. Check those folks out. And am I missing anyone? And of course, check out all the other folks like Oni, Pro Black Perspective, D-Web, the Harsh Rally Podcast. D-Web's out in the chat right now saying peace, fam. So check out all those guys too. I also was tuned into Kofi, the critic, the other day. Good live show. So tune into guys like that, folks who come around the panel and support and add to the conversations. By all means, please check those guys out too. But without further ado, let me welcome in my panelists so far tonight. First up is Oni from the Pro Black Perspective. How are you, Oni?
Hey, what it do? I'm cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for coming through as always. Let's go to our boy Buana next. Buana, how are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Good. I'm hanging in there. Thanks for coming through.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Much appreciated. And if you guys who are out there, if anyone out there wants to join the panel, just click the link that's pinned to the top of the chat, and you too can be on the panel tonight. Without further ado, it's just the three of us for now. I'm going to drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. Hopefully others will join so we could have a even bigger discussion. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, is Tanya TKO, I haven't heard about her in a long time. Is Tanya TKO correct about Nigerians? This is interesting. So I'm going to share the video with you guys. We'll watch it, and then we'll have a discussion on it.
All right. Hello, Knockouts. Tanya TKO here, and I'm in the middle of editing a video right now, but I just wanted to come out and make this video real quick. You know how you're multitasking and your brain is just rotating around and around on. Recently, I've been talking a lot about race relations on my channel, and some of the comments that I get are from Nigerians in Nigeria who talk about how if they were in America, all of the wonderful and amazing things that they would be able to do if they were in America. If I were in America, I would be rich, I would be famous, I would be this, I would be that, because you Black Americans are lazy, you Black Americans are this, you're that, you love thug culture. I just got a comment the other day, and I commented back to the person about their colonial mindset. Hello, everybody. I am doing this live, but I am doing this just to get this idea out so that I could jump back into the video that I'm editing, because listen, it's another day, another Karen. So I'm constantly having to battle Caucasians on one hand, and then now I have to battle Africans on the other. And you all know, listen, I love my Nigerian people. I am genetically Nigerian and Ghanaian. I just spent dirty December and just won't go home January in Ghana and Nigeria. And there's a pervasive thought that I continue to see over and over and over again. And that idea is that somehow there's something defunct and wrong with African Americans just because our trauma is different than your trauma. And as I was editing this video, I realized, listen, the only reason why your Black ass would be able to come over to America and be able to do anything is because of the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the fighting, and the dedication of African Americans who on this soil changed this land. African Americans are the ones who got this country integrated. Let me explain something to you. White people in this country did not give us anything. We have had to take. And this is why you see what is going on in the news and the media right now. We took in the 1960s what it is that we had. We took their lynching They're terrorizing, they're burning down of our neighborhoods, and we continue to rebuild and rebuild and revisit and retwist and re-rise up what it is that we have done in this country. And the only reason why anybody can bring their black ass over here from another mother effing country is because what Black Americans have done on this land. And I'm saying this as a person who is bicultural, whose father is not American, doggone it. My father is an immigrant, and he was able to come over to this country and do something in this country because of the Black people who fought, who died, who bled, who were lynched on this land. So don't sit your black ass over there in some other goddamn country about what you would do in America. The only reason why your black ass could even get the F over here is because of what we have done. Listen to what it is that I'm saying. The reason why people are able to get onto the radios in America is because what Black Americans have done, the culture that we have created with nothing. Nothing. We have been given nothing. Everything that we have in this country, we have because we have taken. Listen to what it is that I'm saying. So don't sit your black ass over there in your country where you're not doing what you need to do with your government. If anything, you should feel inspired by African Americans, inspired to pick up your picket sign and take your ass off your seat and go out there in the streets and protest in your damn land. Listen to what it is that I'm saying, because I was over there in Nigeria. I walked the streets of Lagos, Abuja, and where was it that I was? It was not Owerri. I was in, I'll just say Igbo land. I walked the streets and I saw what it was and I saw what it was like. And I talked to Nigerians, and part of the issue is that there is a docility that exists inside of the average Nigerian that I spoke to. Had a complacency and a docility that exists in there when it comes to their government. And then, right, the nerve of anyone to suggest that because of the type of trauma that you experience in your country, the type of brainwashing that you exist in, different than the type of trauma and brainwashing that we have existed in this country, that somehow that makes you better? No. Part of the reason that Nigeria looks the way that it is right now is because Europeans ran roughshod over that country. Europeans ran roughshod over Nigeria. Took down your symbols and put up their own, implanted you with their religion, had you worshiping white skin. And then after they sucked and siphoned from the country enough, then they started implanting the leaders that they wanted, who would fulfill their white supremacist agenda. And so now you have government officials who don't give a good goddamn about the average Nigerian, because they take their money, they put their money abroad, and they leave you there without lights 24 hours a goddamn day. Meanwhile, they got lights. I've been to Banana Island. I see what rich Nigerians live like. Speaking of which, if I were to come to Nigeria with my American mindset, I would be rich in Nigeria, because I'm not from Nigeria and I don't have the same type of indoctrination that Nigerians have. So when you start trying to say that you will come over to America and do all this, that, and bravo, because you've been trained in a different way. If I went to listen, I was in Nigeria 3 weeks before I made it over to Banana Island. And when I spoke to one of my Nigerian friends, I didn't realize how difficult of a thing that is for the average Nigerian. So don't sit there and start talking about how you would do so much different. If anything, this is the time right now that we need to come together. Instead of being in your colonial programming and mindset, instead of that, release those shackles. Release those shackles and realize that what African Americans are doing and have done in this country is remarkable. It is revolutionary. We have changed, goddamn it, because if it wasn't for African Americans, Black people would still be in the goddamn zoo. Listen to what it is that I'm saying. Listen, We are all African. My ancestors were kidnapped Nigerians and kidnapped Ghanaians. We are all African, all of us. So don't be jealous because our ancestors were stolen and yours were left back there. Did you want to go through this here? Did you want to? Did you want to go? Listen, by the time slavery on this soil ended, there were 600,000 rape babies on this land. Listen to what it is that I'm saying. 600,000. That doesn't even count the amount of children that were fed to alligators. It doesn't count the amount of children from backbreaking work who were never born. 600,000 more. You want to know how many rapes have to exist for 600,000 of those to result in a pregnancy? And then under those harsh conditions for it to result in the birth of a baby. You want to know how many rapes had to take place? Listen, don't be jealous because of what it is that we have done. I have a blue passport because my family was born on this God-forsaken land. And I am going to get everything that is due by my birthright of this nation, me. But I'm not going to discount the experience of another person who is more mentally enslaved than I am. I speak about this all the time. And you all know, listen, I love my Nigerian people. I do. Like I said, I'm genetically Nigerian. You look at my father, you see an Igbo man. However, my father was not born and raised on this funky land. He was not born and raised in the mental slavery, the drudgeons thereof that have enslaved mentally the people who are on this land, some of them, because many of them have risen to be able to get us the level of human rights that we have now. And still, every 20 to 30 hours, a Black person is murdered by the police in this country. And then you see we got effing vigilantes out there killing Black people too. Karens harassing us when we just try to live. We got your bubbas and your rednecks hunting us down when we try to jog and exercise. We got hooded men who came by, poured gasoline on the things that we have built and burnt them to the ground. And we got more hooded men who put on badges every day, gavels in their hand, scalpels in their finger, and steering wheels in their palms. We have policymakers in this country whose forefathers wore hoods and them who still have the hooded heart. And when I say hooded, I'm talking about the Klan, baby. Listen to what it is that I'm saying. So no, don't sit over there in some foreign land talking about what it is that you would do in America, because if you were born on this land entrenched in the funk and the foulness that exists on this land, you would be just as mentally enslaved, just as mentally entrained as the people who are here. So don't think that because your trauma is different than ours, that there's something better about your trauma. Because if anything, just the mere fact that you even dream, that you salivate of going to another land, shows and tells that there's something going on yours that needs to be fixed.
All right, I'll end that there. I do want to say something, though. I noticed there's this trend to complain about the length of these videos. Listen, folks take their time. They post these prompts. I'm going to give them their respect. Now, I did say at the beginning of Shoot the Breeze way back, keep these things between like 7 and 10 minutes or something like that. So we should keep it, keep the length down. But every once in a while, there's going to be a video that goes a little longer than that. So let's just respect that someone took the time and had Shoot the Breeze in mind and said, you know what, let me post this and see what they got to say about it. Before we get into the conversation, though, let me welcome in Black Steel this week. Black Steel, how are you?
I'm doing great, Cuckoo. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for coming through as always.
Always. Let it be here.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. And I mentioned this brother earlier. I was in his live on Thursday. I was welcoming Kofi, the Black Critic, this week. Kofi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for joining my live, and thank you. I love the topic. You go off to a very good start. I was going to do a video about this too, so I'm glad you brought this up. Glad to be here.
Oh, all right, yeah. Thanks for being here as always. I look forward to hearing what you have to say concerning it as well. Let's start off with Buana. Buana, is Tanya TKO correct about Nigerians?
Yes. Let me first say, while I do appreciate the fact
Your
that
volume
people
is kind of low, Buana.
sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
1
but
2.
you're low.
Okay, let me. Can you now? You can hear me now. So
Yeah.
while I do appreciate the fact that people do take the time to send videos, I would really appreciate it if the person who takes the time to send the videos to present the video to, because I would like to know what is the thinking of the person. What did they take away in watching this video themselves? So I would really appreciate it if someone who posts the video were to present the video to lend your voice to in fact what you would have gotten from this video. Me personally, I've not gotten anything from this video besides yelling and screaming. I've cut her off after 5 minutes. And the reason for that is I am an adult. You don't have to scream and yell at me for me to understand something. If you could explain something to me in a way that is clear and concise and as I can understand it and not in the way that I'm being yelled at, then I'll be receptive to what you have to say. If you are yelling and screaming at me, then I'm gonna cut you off right off from the get. That's just my personality. I can't speak for no one else. That's first and foremost. In terms of the Nigerian posting, what they would be able to do if they was in America, of course they would be able to do the things the Nigerians say that they would be able to do. How do I know that? Because they have done it. Why do I say that? Because the African Americans are the Nigerians. The African Americans are the Nigerians and the Ghanaians and the people from Cote d'Ivoire and all these other people. So they've shown that they had the ability to accomplish these kinds of feats. I don't segment and separate myself because because I have a friggin' paper document that say I'm a United States citizen when I've been in Africa for thousands of years prior to that. You know, Malcolm X say just because a cat is born in an oven, that don't make the cat biscuits. So of course the Nigerians, so of course the Nigerians would be able to do these things and make these kinds of accomplishments because they have shown themselves to have done these things. The Nigerians are the African Americans. That's an uncomfortable truth people don't like to talk about. That's first and foremost. Secondly, when I hear this argument, this is really primarily an FBA argument, and we fought for you to come here. Before in the 1960s, the United States had this policy where they was allowing many immigrants to come to United States of America. Bring us your poor, bring us your desperate, bring us all right to Ellis Island. And in that, there are many people from around the world who was coming to the United States of America prior to the so-called discrimination laws that was prohibiting certain people from coming into the United States. Africans was coming into the United States. Caribbean people was coming into the United States. People from all over the world was coming into the United States. And if there were during the civil rights movement, if there were people involved in the civil rights movement who was talking specifically about immigration, this is not a groundswell of 45 or 44 million African Americans. Like any mass movement or any movement, there'll be some people who are for it. There'll be some people who are completely against it. Which part of history were you when this was actually in fact happening? Because we can't tell. Because you include yourself in on people who were your family members and you yourself may not even have wanted that kind of immigration. Today we see the fight against foreigners coming to the continent, foreigners coming into the United States of America now. And a lot of these people are black folks. So why you don't say that you was aligned with the same kinds of black folks who was against having black immigrants coming to the country in the 1960s too? Why you want to include yourself with the people who were saying yes, it's okay for you to come in? This whole is all about finger wagging at other black people. This morality, this thing where we morally finger wag at other people and say you're wrong, you're bad, you're whatever. Because really, in essence, at the base of it, these people are anti-African people. They are anti-African people, just as in this country as well. You have a lot of black-faced people who are anti-African. They dress it up in all manner of other things, but they are anti-African. This is why we have the finger waving and the finger pointing. There are Nigerians on the continent, Africans themselves, who are anti-African. So don't get so offended and upset that you see someone who have an opinion that is absurd. Pass the prompt. Don't get on the internet ranting and you look ridiculous. You look ridiculous to the world. You look misinformed to the world when you're doing that. You look like the only way you could get other people to understand is through ranting, screaming, and throwing a tantrum. Who wants to listen to that? Well, I guess some people do because it moves the algorithms, I guess. But me, like I say, is she wrong or right? I personally don't care. I don't care what her thoughts and opinions are, because she is trying to explain to me and yelling and screaming. I am not a child. I am not a child. You know, make another video where you could explain to me in a different way, and maybe I may pay ear to what you're saying. But this yelling and finger wagging and finger pointing at other black people, man, if some people listen to that, that's good. Me personally, I pay a deaf ear to it. But thank you, Koku, for the time, brother.
Yeah, no problem. And your point about folks who post prompts and should come up and explain that's been the aim from the beginning of Shoot the Breeze. If you post a prompt, you should come up and discuss your thoughts on it, your personal thoughts on it too. Brother Bakari is out there in the chat. He says peace and black power. He says hashtag hold your money. That he was talking about that earlier today. KW Don 7 is out there. Thanks to you for being here as well. Support black businesses, Brother Bakari. KW Don 7 says Tanya TKO is a black misandrist, swirler, divester, apologist. I don't take anything she says seriously. Yeah, I remember from years ago, and to be honest, I was surprised she was still active. I thought for some reason I had the opinion that she was taken off the internet or something like that. But thank you for that. With that said, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Oni, what say you to it?
Yeah, man, I would have got a muzzle. I ain't gonna hold you. That was random. I want to say this though, because I think some people think, oh wow, this lady's so passionate. You gotta know how to read the room. You know, I'm not talking about Afro-Native, I'm just saying generally, right? But what I'm saying is that you gotta, like, I think Marcus Garvey said, you know, you can't mistake like noise and whatever for action or whatever. I don't know, but I remember verbatim. But the point is that it's like you can't mistake, you know, speeches with like this. This is fake passion. There's nobody can get that unhinged randomly. No, this is for the camera. This is for the show. This is what entertains people. This is what gets people to tune in. This is what gets people to super chat. You know, you guys can super chat, but this gets people to you know, put the money. You know, that's all it is. This is how she pays her bills. This is how she has that, you know, decent looking kitchen behind her. That's what it is. There's no genuine passion here, because here's the thing. She's absolutely incorrect. Okay, I would be an idiot if I'd said nobody else could make it in Brooklyn. You know, I'd be an idiot. Obviously, if you have some sort of skill, some sort of talent, some sort of, you know, sales, you know, if you have some sort of product or sale that you're interested in selling to people in Brooklyn, you can probably make it in Brooklyn. I would be an idiot to say you can't make it in Brooklyn and then go off on a rant about how the only reason why you could come to Brooklyn. First off, that's not even true, because first, like everybody knows, for instance, the Harlem Renaissance had Claude McKay, had Marcus Garvey, had I don't know who else. Oh, sorry. What's his name? I think Du Bois is maybe Du Bois. No, Du Bois is, I don't know if his ancestor was from if he had like a Caribbean ancestor, but Malcolm X had a Caribbean ancestor, that kind of stuff. The point being that there were a lot of Caribbean people, at least, and African, you know, continental African people as well in America. already. And I think that in this conversation about, hey, my lineage makes it so that I'm blah 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 blah. Look, you're talking about 1960. If you're talking about 1960, then show the proof that your lineage was involved in immigration rights in 1960. Just show the proof. Because you see, you got Brother Bakari here. Brother Bakari can show you, hey, look, this is my father, and he was involved in voting rights for African Americans in this particular state. He can show you that. That's what lineage means. So when you start, you're Yvette Carnell, you got like a white mom and a white dad, possibly, right? But you're Yvette Carnell. Show where your parents were in the room signing a document for immigrants to come in from Nigeria. Just show it, because if anything, I'd be more convinced if I thought if the Caribbeans in America said, "Oh yeah, we had a part in getting more Caribbeans and continental Africans." And then here's the other thing: I'd be pretty damn convinced if white folk were saying, "Oh yeah, we had a part in getting Caribbeans and continental Africans into America." I'm not convinced that Tanya TKO, whoever she is, right, her mother and father, because this is 1960. This is not, it's not like it's, the 1840. You can't chase anything. This is 1960. Okay, right? I'm not convinced that her parents or grandparents were involved with the civil rights movement to the extent that everybody should come in here and, I don't know, do whatever. But regardless, what I'm saying is this. Yes, if somebody in Nigeria believes that they're confident enough to succeed in America, it's probably true. I mean, I'm not saying it's true. Like, again, a large part of your success is going to be probability, right? But yeah, everybody, like generally speaking, you can pretty much succeed anywhere. Now, chances are you won't, but it's kind of like for those of you who don't know, this guy named Kai Cenat. Most people know you can't make a good living. You can't make good money doing streaming, right? Tons of people do, though. So yeah, if somebody's sitting back and saying, I can make a lot of good money doing streaming, probably. I mean, I don't know. And as far as people in Africa critiquing, oh yeah, but some Black Americans, have bad culture. Yeah, it's true. Some do and some don't. There are some Black Americans and there are some people in Africa who will abandon their children. And then there are some Black Americans and some people in Africa who won't. In fact, one of the women I was talking to, her baby daddy gone, just disappeared off the face of the planet. Doesn't even know where his kid is. People are going to talk shit. The problem is when you decide to respond in a 17-minute rant about, there's no way you can lie. Like, that doesn't even make any damn sense. You're just trying to make a living. You're just trying to make a living yelling at your phone. And it's like, that's okay and all. But the trouble is when we grown damn men, right, have to start are now listening to, basically somebody who's bipolar, somebody who's faking the funk in order to, pay their bills. That is that's a very, very awful thing to do. There are some people who are like, hey, look, I'm passionate. I'm not even looking to pay my bills. I'm just passionate. I want to get some stuff out. There's other people who are like, I'm going to shout at Africans. I'm going to shout at them and tell them that they can't succeed. The reason why they can blah, 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 and give a whole false narrative. No, the reality is this. Confidence is going to get you a long way in this planet, right? If I, for instance, here's something that, whatever. No, let me not say the president, but, basically what I'm saying is that Brooklyn is a place where you could probably do a good music career. But if you want to do a good music career, you should probably be damn confident and come against, just be confident. But yeah, if you're not confident, you're probably not gonna succeed. So I think, I think she's completely wrong. I think her critiquing people because they want to go to a land where they feel like they have a better opportunity is just backward. I think trying to take credit for people being able to travel doesn't make any sense, because Malcolm X said out of his own mouth, hey, if I have a friend who's dark skinned and if he puts on a turban, right, he will be able to sit down in a restaurant. That white people will not even harass him because they were not harassing continental Africans. They were harassing African Americans. And this is not even like what I'm saying. This is what Malcolm X is saying. This is what Asada Shakur told us. Asada Shakur writes in her biography, like right at the beginning of her biography, one of the earlier stories, she writes how she wanted to go to a music park and they were not allowing African Americans in the music park. Her mother said, "Okay, I can get you there. Don't say a word." Her mother went and spoke Spanish to the staff at the amusement park, and then the staff allowed Asada Shakur to ride on the ride because they were discriminating against African Americans, not against Colombian citizens. Because probably like an international thing or probably whatever. But the reality is that you're I'm not saying that they're not mistreating people that are not from African Americans. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that even African Americans in the civil rights movement were pointing out, hey, you know what? Actually, they're treating us worse. It's partly a national thing. It's partly an ethnic thing, kind of. But the reality is that trying to say, oh well, the reason why this is that it doesn't even make any sense in a historical way. Now, granted, I'm not saying I doubt that she understands this history, but what I'm saying is that but what I could see from just reading her, not just the bipolarity, but also what I can see from reading her is this lady is just faking the funk. This is not a genuine rant. This is not genuine passion. This is, I turn on the camera, right? And I want people to, I want people to pay for my rent this week. This is hashtag rent due. In fact, just look at what date it was sent out. Maybe it's like the last few days of February. This is hashtag rent due. That's it.
I appreciate that. Only a couple things you said that I agree. When you really look at the history of them letting more immigrants into the states and stuff like that, really and truly, you could thank the Italians actually for a lot of that stuff back in the 60s. But like others have said in the chat and whatnot, like there was always black folks from the Caribbean. There was something called, my grandmother them used to call it the project. The project, yeah, I think it's the project they used to call it.
Yes, the project. Yes.
Yeah, her father, she didn't know. My grandmother didn't know her father. Her father went on the project, came to the States, and was sending money back for a time, right? So there was always black folks who were around here, who were in here, and who made a impact too. Who designed Chicago? You know what I mean? So that was always going on here. So this taking credit thing, and I like something Moni said too. It's turning a statement that the FBA types like to make. Show your paperwork. Where's your paperwork to say that your immigrants, your family, your lineage was actually even at the damn civil rights movement, or through a stone or whatever? Like, show the work. And most of these folks don't have work to show. I'm just
but please show where which organization did your parent belong to in terms of fighting for immigration rights, black immigration rights to the United States. Show that paperwork as well. That's what I would want to see. Because like I say, the finger wagging madness gotta stop. Let's show the paperwork now.
Absolutely, Buana. Much appreciated for that. Black Steel, you've heard what others had to say. What say you?
So I'm a little disappointed in some of my fellow posters because nobody really gave the topic the respect it should have. Yeah, I understand old girl is ranting and raving, but you really didn't even address what she was talking about. Now, I know Tanya TKO, and she's a very hateful woman. She says nothing but hateful things about black men in particular. She's definitely one of those divestors, swirlers, anti-black men. Black men are the downfall of black society. We're the weakest link. So what she's talking, I take whatever she says with a grain of salt. But what she's referring to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, also known as the Hart-Celler Act. So prior to this, the United States had what they call a national origins formula. In order to keep America as white as possible, they only accepted a limited amount of immigrants from certain non-white countries. So you had like a handful come from China, a couple hundred can come from the Caribbean, a few come from Africa, so on and so forth. But the Immigration and Nationality Act, what that did, that eliminated the national origins formula. So that allowed more people of African descent to come in. So after that law was passed, and I know there were Caribbean immigrants and African immigrants coming in the country, but once they passed this law, it really opened up the gate. So whereas almost 7 times the number of people came in the country after that law was passed. So that's what she's referring to. I get tired of the diaspora wars. This to me is just another front of the diaspora wars, where Nigerians or other Africans are saying what they could do in America, and I guess they're saying that to kind of cast negative things about African Americans. She is right to a point. We all are African people, but with it coming from her, I got a little, I'm looking at her a little crazy. I'm not really checking for her like that. But to the point, yeah, we are all Africans, and I understand that it is done in a way for Europeans to keep us at each other's throats. Black people from in the diaspora organizing, uniting with Africans on the continent, Africans in the Caribbean, in South America, is an existential threat to white global domination. And they will do everything possible to keep us at each other's throats. So this is an example of the worst person you know of making a valid point. She is a piece of trash. Not a fan of her work. Everything. I mean, if you ever have the misfortune to come across any of her YouTube stuff, it's all just negative. Black men this, black men that. Whoever broke her heart, I'm sorry. All right, deal with that shit. It's really. But to her point, yes, we are all one people. Yeah, and we are kept apart by various means. And again, this, to her point, that is a very true statement as far as opening the allowing more immigrants of African descent, of Asian descent. There was I believe it was called the Chinese Exclusion Act, and it was passed in like the mid 1900s, where Asian immigrants were completely restricted from I'm not Asian, but Chinese immigrants were prohibited from coming in the country. I think there was a point where only would let like 100, 200, 1,000 people from Africa or from the Caribbean to come in, because the goal was to accept immigrants from Western Europe, not even Europeans of Slavic origin, Europeans of Italian origin. They had their quotas limited. So she is speaking to a true historical thing. But as for the messenger itself, yeah, I'm not a fan of Tanya. She's definitely, if we were on fire, she wouldn't spit on us, because she definitely has no love for brothers. So for her to come on with this rant, and she is ranting. Don't get me wrong, she's ranting, but within her rant, she has a few nuggets of truth. I kind of dig those out, but I'll leave it there. I'll let the next person speak. Thank you.
Wait, Alexi, before you go. So are you saying that there's some nuggets of truth? Are you saying that one of those nuggets is that Black Americans actively fought for Caribbean and African immigrants to come to the U.S.?
I would say that African Americans made it a point to have the national origins quotas removed, so that way more people of African descent could come in. That's what I would say.
He is not saying
Can
he is
I
not.
come in? Can I please come in?
Oh, sorry, Kofi. Go
I'm
ahead, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Kofi, hold on a second. I'm working my way to you. Let Buano say his piece here, and then Black C respond.
What he said is very okay. Thank you, Koku. What he's saying is very important. When he said that as a policy, that particular thing in 1965 was created by some African American people who made that a point. Now the question becomes, who were these African Americans? because African Americans could be Caribbean people who may have wanted their family members to come to the country, and on paper they were African American, but in reality they probably had descendants from the Caribbean and other places like that. And it's possible they could have been primarily African American. So I would really like to see who specifically was pushing that bill, because of course we know it was not 45 million African Americans who would have wanted that to happen or who pushed for that to happen. Of course we understand that. The second thing I want to say is this, and this is very important. Black Steel mentions specific acts, and it makes the conversation more intelligent, because he specifically points to certain things. Now it's a meat I could chew on now. So now I'm saying that what is written on paper is not necessarily what goes on in real life. What white guys do inside the halls of chamber of Washington, D.C. may not necessarily have any ground in what happens in South Florida. Let me explain that. Before the so-called cocaine wars, that happened in South Florida in the 80s, South Florida was a wide open territory. Ships from the Caribbean was back and forth and back and forth. In particular, the mail boats, people who wanted to ship bananas and things like that was open territory. People who wanted to migrate long before 1965 was hopping, jumping ship and staying in South Florida, and then they end up having families there and moving beyond South Florida and Atlanta and things like that. There've been Jamaicans who was doing it for way before 1965, Haitians who was doing, some of them don't even speak English. So as far as that bill, that doesn't affect them. They just moving about in South Florida. And since no one was checking for the borders in South Florida, they was coming and going and operating as they pleased. Many immigrants wasn't rushing to come here at that time, because why would I want to come to America when life for me ain't hard in the Caribbean? I could smoke my ganja, I could have sex with my woman, and I could eat my fish. There was no economic conditions going on. Castro wasn't trying to communize Cuba and Jamaica. They didn't send situations in Jamaica would make the Jamaican dollar is almost one for one inside of the 1 for 1 in American dollars and Jamaican dollars. It was 1 for 1. They was operating off from the British pound, so they had enough money within the economy to move about. They didn't want to migrate. They didn't have to migrate. The conditions, the political conditions changed from around the world, and it affected the Caribbean differently. Therefore, you start seeing more and more immigration on black folks from the South coming into the Americas. But prior to that, people was coming into the America as they pleased. They really wasn't moved by act or a move of Congress or anything like that. They was doing it because they wanted to do it. They wanted to. That's been happening in South Florida, brother. That's been happening. And I think that what happens usually in the halls of chambers in Washington, D.C. does not mean it equates on the ground with what's actually happening in different parts of the country, let alone the world. Just because the white man put it on the paper, that don't necessarily mean it's going to change or affect anything. People been moving about the world, and they're going to continue to do so regardless of what people say, putting up borders and we're going to put this wall up or what. That's not going to stop nothing. But I'll just leave it. I just wanted to add another kind of dynamic to that conversation, which really talked about, was really discussed and talked about. But I'll leave it there.
Black Seal, you could respond to that, and then Kofi go.
I'll go ahead and let Kofi go.
All right.
Pretty much my first thing is pretty much everyone's saying right now, just to piggyback on what Juana was saying, is on my channel years ago, probably like a year or two ago, because it is the FBA narrative. I mean, I don't know her. I'm glad you guys gave like a background of who she is. So she's probably being disingenuous, but I think her concern is, I think she got triggered by a Nigerian person that said what they said. And she's double talking. She's bad mouthing Nigerians and their colonial state and saying that, well, hey, you can't tell me what to do in America because black people did this, black people did that. Like, again, it's an FBA talking point. Black people are all these big bad people. But then again, later at the end, towards the end of the video, she's talking about, oh, but Karens and KKK, they're kicking out. So what are you talking about? Right? So what are you saying? That makes no sense. So the thing that eggs me is what you guys have been talking about. There is no bill or group of Black Americans that fought for immigration. There isn't. I offered that challenge months. I'm a very small YouTube channel. I'm a very awesome channel, but everyone that I come in contact in social media, all the FBA goons and stuff like that, and when you go to the Immigration Act of 1965, ain't nothing but a bunch of white people on there. You got Kennedy there, right? You got Lyndon B. Johnson there, signing it here in New York. There's no Black person there on paper. Nobody. And like we said, like I said before, show me something. We know those Black people, when they, again, a good point. You have Black people that was already here. You have Caribbean people that was already here. Marcus Garvey was already here. We're talking about the beginning of the 19th century. He was already here. What are you talking about? We're talking about Malcolm X's grandfather. He was already here. That's before the 60s. They're already here. So we want to talk about, okay, but it was just Black Americans. Oh, so Harry Belafonte, he's not Jamaican? Kwame Ture, he's not from Africa? What are you guys talking about? We're fighting hand in hand together. During the summer, that's what I'm saying. These are people that don't. I'm not trying to take shots at my brother Black Steel. Whatever. I'm just saying there's like a history that I'm just generalizing. There's a history that we know and we don't apply it or we forget about it because we're trying to prove a point. Hand by hand, Harry Belafonte is right there. Kwame Ture is right there. Coakley Starmichael, Trinidad, he's right there. We fought for our rights in this country together. This FBA thing is for moronic people that don't even know they even don't know their own history. They probably don't even know their own congressman is. And they're gonna teach you some history? They're gonna teach you some history? Like what are we talking about? We fought it together. There's not one. How are Black Americans who can't even where we got the white man telling you where you could shit, where you could eat, and all that, going to think about some Black people that don't even affect them at all? Like, well, they got some people in South Africa and in Zimbabwe and Nigeria. It's really bad. So let's go fight for their rights while we have no rights. Make that make sense. That doesn't make any sense. And the reason why I challenge anybody to find a group of a Black person. Martin Luther King made mention of, hey, what's going on in South Africa is bad. Malcolm X made mention what's going on in South Africa is bad. What's going on in Vietnam is bad. That is not you guys galvanizing together, right? With a baton being knocked over your head and being hosed down, saying, "Oh, but what about our people in Africa?" No, that's dumb. You can concern about your people here, but it's also Caribbean people. So the thing that links us together is that we are on this land and all of us have no rights. So I'm going to go join with you. A Jewish person can say, we helped to get civil rights. And that is true. You had a lot of Jewish people that was with Black people during the civil rights era. We all remember some Jewish boy here from Brooklyn, a couple other white people here. They went to a protest with Martin Luther King. The cops knew who they were. It was two white boys and a Black boy. They chased them, they shot them down, and they killed them. Bernie Sanders was in on the march during the civil rights era, right? So white people, Jewish people that did that, they could say that. But you, a Black American, is telling us that we weren't there and you fought for us. I'm like, no, we are you. We were there. So again, it's I wouldn't give it too much credence because it's a stupid argument and it's self-defecating because you're gonna talk all that good stuff with your chest puffed out and saying, oh, but we can't even barbecue in peace. We can't even swim in peace. We can't even jog in peace. In Guyana, you could jog in peace. In Jamaica, you could jog in peace. In Nigeria, I'm pretty sure you could jog in peace. No one's gonna say, what you doing, Black boy? So you're making yourself look weak at the end of the day. So basically, I was going to, again, when it comes to that, I have not been to Nigeria. I'm not going to put it past a Nigerian person said that, right? He may have a colonial mindset, but there's black people here that have there's black people here that have a slave mindset. And again, she's double talking. So she's like, hey, look, I'm not gonna say your trauma is worse than my trauma or vice versa. And then at the end of the day, she came to a place like, wow, why am I even making this video after she calmed down? Because then the end of the day, we're all African and we all are going through the same trauma by the same beast. So what's your point of your video again? So it's very counterproductive, and it caught, again, obviously it caught a lot of attention, but a lot of it is not what she's saying is not historic. It's just totally not historic. And again, to leave off where you guys left off, show me an African American from the fields of Georgia, from the slave fields of Georgia and Louisiana and North Carolina and Virginia, from past the Mason-Dixon line, that fought, say, you know what, we need more Africans and Caribbeans, and protested all the way to Capitol Hill. We want black Africans here. You're not gonna find it, and I'll land my plane right here.
I appreciate that.
All right, so I want to respond to that really quickly, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Buck.
No one's saying that there were no Caribbean immigrants in America prior to the Hart-Celler Act. We understand this. There were, like you mentioned, Sidney Poitier, Shirley Chisholm. Hell, Cole. Hold on, I'm gonna hit my camera real quick so you can see this book I'm referencing right here. Don't be looking at me here. This is a book I'm referencing right now. So anyways, what I'm saying is that so during the civil rights movement in the 1960s, America, as I was saying before, had national, quotas on where people could come from. So during the height of the civil rights movement, where African Americans were fighting for freedom, fighting to get our rights or whatever, these laws were seen as an embarrassment on the international stage, because many times, during the Cold War, the Russians would often use United States, Jim Crow laws against them on the world stage. Like, how can the Americans preach to you? They're doing stuff. They kill Negroes. They won't let Negroes vote. They treated the Nazi prisoners better than their own American servicemen. So the United States knew the embarrassment of these national quota laws. So combined with the civil rights movement, they moved to pass the Immigration Act of 1965. So there were Africans in the country. I'm not denying that they were coming in, but I'm just coming from the book right here. It says that up to 1965, about 1,500 Jamaicans immigrated per year. From 1966 to 1975, the immigration averaged 12,400 annually. And then it went up between 1976 to 1985 to 18,000 annually. So then you're starting to see the numbers go up. So I understand there were already Africans in the country at that point, but I'm saying that it was because of these laws on the books, they kept the numbers at a certain level, but then they began to have the numbers increase. So I'm not looking at a particular African American. This is part of the entire civil rights movement, to have more representation for African people, African Americans in Congress, in the country. So that's why these laws were put in place, not so much to not we just let you in, but because we're going to have more of you in. There were already Africans, Caribbean people already in the country at that time, but this really allowed more to come in. And now I understand they were already in there, going back and forth, from the Bahamas to Jamaica to Trinidad, all throughout the South. And I get that. This is just, okay, now we're going to get those laws off the books that say we can't have as many, because this is really, if truth be told, this is really a PR thing. This is really America looking bad on the world stage because they want to be a world leader. And look at how you treat people of other races. How can you go to countries in Africa and say you should be with us instead of the Soviets? And this is how you treat your own Black citizens, how you treat Black people coming in to the country. So that's really what the Hart-Celler Act is. I'll stop there.
I agree with you what you're saying there, but I think the question is, according to what she's saying, we're not saying you're saying that necessarily. I'm not saying that. She's saying we fought, and as an FBA talking point, we fought for you to get here. So we want to see what on paper, what legislation, what group, what organization actually fought. Because this is something that FBA says it's a broad blanket statement, and no one has no real history to back it up. So the Hart Sellers Act was that initiated by an African American? I think that's the answer that I think
don't
we're
believe
all
so.
looking
No,
for.
no, I don't think that was initiated by African American. And at that time, there were very few African Americans in the legislative branch of the United States, so that was not initiated by an African American. No, but it was in response to the civil rights movement in the United States, as well as pressure from the Soviet bloc as a way to keep America looking as a pillar of morality on the world stage. So there's not a particular African American I can
All
name.
right, all right, so our history is right. So I understand the civil rights movement they revamped the whole American system just for you said because it looked bad in American states, and that's what Martin Luther King was to do, right? He was like, hey, look, they say we have rights, but we really don't have rights. So let's do what the things that we're supposed to do as Americans, and we're gonna cause this whole PR stunt and there's going to look bad on the world stage. Even Malcolm X says, hey, look, I respect the white man in South Africa more than I respect the white man in America, because the white man in South Africa says what he means and means what he says. Like, nigga, you can't come in this beach. Nigga, if you want to come here, you need a card. Versus America, where it's like, oh, no, we're all the same. And they seek dogs on you. Dogs seeking dogs on you. Right? So we're absolutely right. I'm absolutely right. And other people on the panel are absolutely right. Black Americans shouldn't say we fought for you in opposition of black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. You cannot say we fought for you, because basically saying it's a unilateral thing that we did. You guys have no part in it. When we knew Harry Belafonte was there, Stokely Carmichael was there. The first female running for president was Shirley Chisholm, right? It's also from the Caribbean. So we cannot say we fought for you. It's a very divisive term, and it makes it seem like, okay, we had to come to this country and kiss your ass, like we didn't do anything. Like, oh, thank you, Black Americans. It's like no, we all fought it together because we all were here. So I'll just end it there.
Let me just. I have two new panelists I want to get to. I know Oni wants to point something else. I'll let you point it out, but be brief so I can get to the two other panelists, please.
All right, yeah. So I want to do this quickly. So if you look at those 2 pages, the Nationality Act of 1952 and the Nationality Act of 1965, they show you the annual national quota, and then they kind of summarize it by continent, right? So just to be quick, they show you the 1921 Act, 1924 Act, 1952 Act, and they're saying that the number of people coming in from Africa was 1,200, and then it went to 4,274 because of the 1952 Act, I'm guessing, right? That's what it's showing, right? And then in 1965, I guess when they revisit it, it stays in that 4,200 range from 1965 to 1969. 4,000 for 1962, it is for 1965 it is the 4,274. Next year it's 1,332. Next year it's 1,600. Next year it's 3,000. Next year after that is 4,500. But for Asia, it goes from 3,600 to 3,000 to 21,000 to 35,000 to 53,000. Okay, so long story short, if anything, right, this act only really brings in more Asian people. It doesn't bring in more African people.
Only go back down real quick. Go back to the Africa. I want to see something.
Wait, I'm not sharing the screen. He's sharing the screen. This is a different screen.
Oh, but look where it says, okay, Ethiopia 100. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's crazy.
No, go to the other screen. Go to the 1952 one and the I don't know if I could present, but I don't know if I should, but go to the 1952 paper, And then the 1965, like, you scroll to the bottom, you're gonna see the table. Yeah, actually, this is the good one to do. Go to the bottom, just keep going, and then you're gonna see the table that looks like scroll down right here, this one. And then you see this is like 1967 and 1970. So scroll down to the bottom, and you see how it says all of Africa, total for Africa, and then versus total for Asia, where the Asia shoots up to 65,000. If you scroll down a little more, because we can't see it with the banner.
And then also, too, you think about it, too, this is also during the Vietnam War, so they're probably bringing a lot of Vietnamese as well, too.
Yeah, but you see how, like, the total number is 152, and the only thing that really, really changes is that there's a higher portion of Asians. Like, the Africans are still 2-3%. Basically, the way how Tanya and a lot of these FBA ADOS people do is they're like, man, why y'all not sucking our dicks? We got y'all in this country. And it's like, look, okay, that's weird, right? But the other thing is, like, if you go down and break down the numbers, it looks like you really, if you really did fight for this legislation, you got a bunch of Asians in this country. But the reality is that, and again, the reality is that there's no real evidence that a bunch of black folk were fighting for this legislation. And it seems like maybe, like you said, it could be related to the war, could be related to, other propaganda stuff, could be related to capitalists wanting more people from other countries, particularly like Asia, who knows, it could be India and a bunch of cheap labor type shit. Whatever it is, or like better relations with China, better relations with Nigeria, better relations. The point is this, that if you break it down, it looks like, no, there's no damn reason for you to be shouting at black folks saying, how dare you? We got you in this country. You got a bunch of, if you did this legislation, you got a bunch of the Koreans and China, like, you got the people doing their nails and your hair. That's what you got in this country. You did not get these. I mean, like, it looks like the black people were already here. And again, I don't know if any black people were involved in this, but I'll try to stop speaking because I know I'm on a thing.
It's cool. It's cool. I appreciate you pointing that out. I know, and thanks for the directions, because I was in another tab, so I couldn't see what was being blocked by the banner and all that stuff. With that said, let's get to Real Black Gentleman. Real Black Gentleman, how are you this week?
I'm good. Look, I'll be brief because, like, I mean, what she said was over the top, and you know what I'm saying, like I said in the chat, she's making a mountain out of a molehill. You know what I'm saying? She's trying to, like, garner attention over a non-issue. These people who, you know what I'm saying? You heard of these people? You know, this thing, this white identified Nigerian crisis out here. Have you heard? Yeah, I'm not even going to go deep into it. I'm just going to go ahead and let someone else talk. She's just talking nonsense.
Appreciate that, RBG. Let's welcome our boy, Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari, how are you this week?
I'm good, you know what I'm saying? Hey, what's going on, everybody on the panel in the chat? You know what I'm saying? But
yes, sir.
But look, what I want to say, look, I don't even know what the woman said. I'm gonna be honest. I'm in the bar, we trying to listen. I have folks listening to you while I'm sitting out here hanging. But I just heard y'all say FBA and ADOS. They are a waste of damn time. They are useless people. And I mean that with everything in my, every fiber of my being. These people, I be in spaces that most of y'all don't come into. I be in HBCU spaces. And I hear a lot of hate from black folks with HBCU. But I'm on Twitter and I'm in a space. And the amazing thing is, FBA and ADOS, we don't need any more HBCU school. We only need American colleges. And these people are a waste of effing time. They're not going to do anything. They just beg and complain. They show who they are. They're not going to say anything about the white immigrants here. They're not going to say anything. They'll talk about what Latinos or whoever is getting from this country. They don't know real history. They don't talk about what this country have done for white folks in this country. They'll talk about what they gave Ukraine and Israel, but they don't talk about what this country gave Bosnia back in the 90s. Only thing they're concerned about, cut a check, cut a check, cut it. And I hope they cut their ass a check and I'm going to buy me a store and sell a whole lot of Newport cigarettes and sell to them. Because they are useless people. And I'm just being honest. Anybody who's walking around with that, they are useless. You can't name one thing that they say that makes sense. And when they talk about they fought for African people to come here and no Africans ever done anything, that also shows their lack of history. And I tell people to look this up. Won't you look up and see how African countries, starting with Kenya, was reaching out to MLK and Malcolm X, asking them what can they come and do to help the African Americans. Won't you look and see, you can find sit-ins where there was people who made it here from the continent who did sit-ins with African Americans, right? We know Jamaicans was here because everybody know His Excellency, the greatest leader ever, Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We know Trinidad. We know with Kwame Ture, because his ex told me don't call him Stokely. She get offended by that. So we know Kwame Ture. So we know other people was here. These people want attention. And if she have a YouTube channel, or anything on social media, this is good for her to get attention. These people are pitiful. They gonna keep you on your knees begging reparations. What about the what is it called? Men only be laughing at it when we talk. Racial wealth gap, but they're not gonna ever come up with a solution. Hashtag hold your money. They're not gonna ever give you a solution. Hashtag support black business. Hashtag black business challenge. They ain't gonna ever give you no type of solution of what you can do for yourself. Stay on your knees begging God. And when I'm talking about them begging God, they're begging white people. They're useless. There's no need. Like, they are absolutely useless. I don't even know who this woman is. If I hadn't seen her and got in a position where me and my friend could hear y'all, because like I said, I'm in here and I'm letting people listen. So if I wasn't in a position where other people could hear this, my friends from Kenya, my friends from Nigeria, my Geechee friends from Savannah, we all sitting and I wouldn't have known who this woman is. There's just a big mouth that need to shut up, but something mean another thing, wax and wane, love to talk. In words, they wax and wane. Wax and wane, they love to complain, love to hear self-talk, but never explain. She don't have no type of solutions. She just want to complain about black people, but it also shows an esteem of self problem. It's a low self-esteem. So who can we fight? Just like the guy who a lot of these so-called FBA 80s used to follow. He's dead now. I can't think of his name, that always went at women. You never fight up. You always fight down. And that's the mind of these people. It's mind of a lot of African Americans. Well, I ain't gonna say African Americans. It's a mind of a lot of these people that call themselves Black American. I don't even know what a Black American is. It doesn't make sense to me, right? That's me. But so as we go, and you just listen to these people, they never say we don't need PWIs. Just shut down the HBCUs. We only need American colleges. And these are black people coming in black chats. We only need American colleges. That's what they're worth. They're worth nothing. And we have given them tonight, because I've been listening, in a good 35 minutes of our time. I understand people like this need to be shut. We have to shut them up. But she's useless. Yvette Carnell is useless. Tariq Nasheed are useless. And anybody under those banners following those people, they're just absolutely good for nothing, as they call themselves, Black Americans. They would never come together. I heard Yvette Carnell say one time when somebody said we can come together and do business. This is not a business organization. This is a reparations group. So we are not here talking about doing business. And she literally, I'm gonna tell you something. My homeboy make between 150 and 200,000 a year. And it was literally about 2,000 people in that chat, and he was one of them. She convinced him that he didn't have $5 a month to give toward a business organization. That's the mind of our people. Low self-esteem. Don't think you can win. Only want to sit around like a bunch of, I'm trying to stop cussing, so I'm trying to think of something good to say. Only want to sit around like a bunch of punks and just complain. And that's all I wanted to say about this big mouth wench. That's all I wanted to say. Now I'm gonna listen before I get off. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate that. And drink one for me. I forgot to buy anything tonight, so I'm here dry.
Yeah, we got
good
hey,
discussion.
Bawana. We don't have rum. Bawana, we don't have rum. I got them Kenyans in there turning up to Jack Daniels.
Hey, Bakari, you got them listening to us?
Yeah, I was sitting in there. Yeah, we were listening. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Much appreciated. Good discussion there. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. So we spent a lot of time there. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight. It says, what's going on again? I don't know what's up. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 says, if Whitey can infiltrate U.S. media establishment, why don't we? This takes us to Twitter. Post by Khaleesi, I guess, says huge October 7th expose. Largest media scandal exposed. The New York Times article about Hamas was written by an IDF soldier, not a journalist. Everything was a lie. The world believed them without any evidence. It came with this video. We'll watch it and then we'll discuss.
A massive scandal is developing at the New York Times, where it has now been revealed that the co-author of a discredited article on rape on October 7th, liked genocidal posts on social media, is a former member of an IDF intelligence unit, and had not even worked as a journalist at all prior to taking on a central role in Times coverage. The Times is now investigating the journalist, a woman by the name of Anat Schwartz, but the questions about this incident go so far beyond this one journalist and her appreciation for psychopathic social media posts. So here is the backstory. On December 28th, the New York Times published and news alerted what appeared to be an extensive investigation into one of the most fraught and contested parts of the Israeli October 7th narrative, that sexual assault was used by Hamas systematically as a weapon of war on that day. The piece was headlined, Screams Without Words, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th, and the byline named 3 different authors, Jeffrey Gettleman, Anat Schwartz, and Adam Sella. Now, the fact that Hamas committed atrocities on October 7th is not in dispute. However, certain particularly horrifying anecdotes claimed by the Israeli government have fallen apart under scrutiny by Israeli outlet Haaretz. These debunked claims include that 40 babies were beheaded, that a baby was found in an oven, and that a pregnant woman had her baby cut out of her, among others. It is no accident, of course, that these stories were propagated. This agitprop about the barbarism of Hamas was crucial for Israel in their attempt to justify a barbaric assault on the Gaza Strip. So this piece, Screams Without Words, was published by the New York Times, purporting to back up Israeli assertions about widespread rape on October 7th. It was incredibly significant. But no sooner had the piece been published that major problems emerged. The family of a woman murdered by Hamas, who was presented as a central figure in the New York Times narrative about widespread rape, denounced the story in furious and unequivocal terms. They claimed that when the Times loved one, Gal Abdush, under false pretenses, the family said that they had no indication Gal had been raped, no evidence to support such claims, did not believe them to be true, and that they had no idea that the Times had planned to say that Gal had been raped. Multiple family members told the Israeli press that the media invented the story and demanded that they stop spreading lies. Gal's story comprised no less than 1/3 of the lengthy Times report. And that was really just the beginning of the problems with that report. Key witnesses were caught telling inconsistent stories to different news outlets. Screams Without Words had relied on the testimony of a volunteer with an ultra-Orthodox nonprofit called Zaka that had been caught fabricating some of the most visceral debunked anecdotes about October 7th, including that one about the 40 beheaded babies. And the Times itself, well, they appeared to lose confidence in the reporting. As our colleague Ryan Grimm, along with Daniel Boguslaw, reported for The Intercept, an episode of the New York Times flagship podcast, The Daily, had been planned to detail the reporting from the sexual assault piece, which had originally been much hyped by the New York Times newsroom. But as the quote-unquote reporting in the piece fell apart, the Times was left with a major dilemma about what to do. Should they ignore the problems, stand by their shoddy reporting, and push out the Daily episode as recorded? Should they edit the Daily episode and attempt to correct the record, add caveats, and effectively admit the problems with that original report? Or should they take the coward's way out and just shelve the episode entirely? Now, a responsible outlet would either correct the original story or retract it, given the serious journalistic failings that have been brought to light. But the Times chose to keep their propaganda piece as is, shelve the Daily episode, and hope that everyone just moved on. Incredibly, The lead author of that piece, Jeffrey Gettleman, was at great pains to explain that as a journalist, he did not see his job as providing evidence for his reporting claims. Take a listen.
I don't want to even use the word evidence, because evidence is almost like a legal term that suggests you're trying to prove an allegation or prove a case in court. That's not my role. We all have our roles, and my role is to document, is to present information, is to give people a voice.
So if this investigation didn't include evidence, what the hell are we doing here? But as if all of that wasn't wild enough, we are now learning some absolutely shocking things about the background of the second reporter on that piece, the aforementioned Anat Schwartz. Shout out to Z Squirrel for doing this digging online. First of all, on October 7th, Anat liked to post calling for Gaza to be turned into a slaughterhouse. This post was so overtly genocidal in its rhetoric that it was actually cited in South Africa's filing at The Hague. The post read in part, "One principle that needs to be abandoned today, proportionality. Need a disproportionate response. May Israel see what she is hiding in the basement. If all the captives are not returned immediately, turn the strip into a slaughterhouse. If a hair falls from their head, execute security prisoners, violate any norm on the way to victory." The post goes on to explain, quote, "Those in front of us are human animals." Anat also apparently liked a post about that 40 beheaded babies lie, and another one calling for an effective propaganda operation to equate Hamas with ISIS. Love for our journalists to be out here explicitly advocating for propaganda campaigns. This is completely insane. If a journalist had liked similarly genocidal posts calling for Israel to be turned into a slaughterhouse, it would be a national scandal. The entire New York Times leadership would be dragged in front of congressional hearings and summarily fired. In fact, New York Times forced out a prominent staff writer who was not involved in Israel-Palestine coverage simply for signing a letter opposing Israel's genocide in Gaza. The International Court of Justice, of course, has now agreed that it is in fact plausible Israel is committing genocide. Now, after Anat's posts were exposed, she locked down her Twitter account, deleted most of her history before returning. But while she can delete her social media history, she can't really so easily delete her professional past, which, if anything, is actually even wilder. So apparently, prior to landing this plum gig at the New York Times, Anat Schwartz had never worked as a journalist, never published a single piece anywhere ever, before being scooped up by the Times in November, just after the October 7th attack. She had been working as a small-time filmmaker. Perhaps the Times was looking for someone with a flair for the cinematic. But really think about this. Actual journalists spend their entire careers dreaming of a New York Times byline. The Times, after all, is the holy grail of elite journalism. And this lady, with literally zero experience, somehow gets brought in on a highly sensitive investigation on one of the most fraught topics imaginable. How the hell did this happen? But Anat is not only a former filmmaker, she is also a former IDF soldier who served, I kid you not, in an Air Force intelligence unit. So the lady with the genocide prior journalism experience and a background in Israeli military intelligence was contracted to report on a piece which perfectly served Israeli government propaganda efforts at the time. What is happening here? Ryan, of course, has been doing great reporting as usual. He's got it from several sources. The Times is parting ways with Anat. It's already been reported she is under investigation. But at this point, those actions seem like convenient scapegoating to cover up much graver questions. Who brought this lady in? How did they find her? Who greenlit this piece? Why have they not addressed the journalistic collapse of their supposedly blockbuster investigation? And what other Israeli propaganda and lies are they currently laundering? It's not only the New York Times, by the way. Wall Street Journal recently published a piece based on zero evidence that ran cover for Israeli claims about UNRWA, which helped justify the U.S. pulling aid at a time when Palestinians in Gaza are starving to death. That piece, too, was co-authored by a so-called journalist named Carrie Keller-Lynn with undeniable biases. She, too, served in the IDF and in an interview bragged about how her very close friend literally created social media for the IDF. Those are her words, not mine. Once these photos that you can see on your screen started circulating, Carrie Keller-Lynn also locked her accounts, scrubbed her history to prevent anyone from gathering further insights into her pro-Israel bias. Now, this incident casts in a whole new light. The studies would show systematic bias across major news outlets when it comes to coverage of Israelis and coverage of Palestinians. Israelis are slaughtered, Palestinians just mysteriously die. Great pains are often taken to make sure that Israel is never directly ascribed blame. And as the Palestinian death toll has climbed, the coverage of their deaths has
Okay, for me, the sound dropped out at the end there, but I think we get the idea. That's interesting stuff. I remember there's a saying, something along the lines like war is based on deception and all that kind of stuff, and we see that play out. I don't know how many of us really pay attention to it. I think a lot of us just kind of go. I think the masses tend to just go along with the narrative, but this is why we need to be, those of us who are here, we need to be the ones who are breaking it down and giving the truth of what's going on, especially in our world. Shout out to the matron who's out there. She said some of the realities faced by us are so horrific that we don't have to lie. We just need to tell the truth. Conversely, we don't do positive PO. She says we don't do positive propaganda anymore. We need to learn from Gavi. Also, some of the realities faced by Black people are so horrific that we just need to tell the truth as we see it. Well said, matron. Make sure you guys are tuned in to the Revolutionary Matron as she does her readings week by week. So make sure follow her, subscribe to the channel. Buana, what say you to this?
Yeah, shout out to Matron. She's a big deal to me on social media. She is actually doing the positive PR in reading to our people. You know, she may not think it's a big thing now, but she's doing very important work in exposing to the Black world to important pieces of literature that we need to know. She is reaching into the past, and she's exposing to our people things that they need to think about and consider. So big shouts out to the sister. Contribute if you can to her work. You know, don't just let her read for free. You know, donate and give to what she's actively doing through the week. You know, like I say, man, just give her an opportunity, and I'm telling you, you know, the things that she is doing right now is extremely revolutionary. In terms of this, there's a few people that I really listen in terms of the mainstream, people who actively are telling the truth these days. I could refer you. I would refer any of the listeners to people like Chris Hedges. You know, Chris Hedges. Abby Martin is a person who I feel is telling the truth in as far as modern media. She's still telling the truth. George Galloway, a guy from out of England, he is honest. Sometimes he keeps it real. George Galloway has a show on YouTube called The Mother of All Talk Shows. So if you want to know about Middle Eastern affairs, you know, his show it'll give you some good standing and understanding of what's going on in that area. Karen Hunter and Greg Carr. Dr. Greg Carr from out of Howard, they have very, very good pieces in terms of explaining to our people what's going on the ground in the Middle East. And they have a Black perspective in terms of what's going on the ground down there. So anyone who would probably want to follow modern media, you know, have a look at the people who are what I've mentioned so far. In terms of us being able to infiltrate the establishment, my brother. What I would say is you can infiltrate. You have to create an off-brand media for yourself, exposing what's going on in other countries of the world. You can infiltrate or be a part of the system and then speak from within that system. You're not going to be permitted to. The minds of the Western mind has to be conditioned in a certain way. And the powers that be are very careful of who they allow or put out there on Front Street in terms of when you have masses of people listening to the modern media, whether it's through the news or social media, etc., etc., etc. There are a few people who are able to get through, like some of the people who I would have mentioned. But don't think that you are getting the truth when you listen to CNN or any of these or any of these regular news stations. You're never gonna get the truth from these people. You know, they're not designed that way for that. They want to keep our people dumbed down and blind and ridiculous and looking at the world only through a particular spectacle or bias. You're not going to get it. You have to actively research for it. And like I say, there are still a few people out there who are attempting to tell the truth, And that's the people who I listen to in terms of understanding what's going on in the Middle Eastern world, outside of the actual Arabs or the people on the ground themselves. And I don't speak Arabic. So, sometimes I listen to Al Jazeera, sometimes I don't. So, I mean, it just depends on what you're listening to these days. Be careful what you're listening to. Try to filter through what you're listening to. But these are the people who I would put forward in terms of what I listen to and what's going on in the Middle Eastern world and the conflicts that's going on over there. But I'll leave it there.
Thank you for that, Bwana. In the chat, Trigger Happy says, infiltration implies statecraft. You can't do anything without statecraft. Also, Israel and their relations to the West means that maybe an easier process. Thank you for that, Trigger Happy. Let's hear from Real Black Gentleman. What say you?
I will say, to kind of carry on to what Trigger Happy said about statecraft. I mean, again, like, it's a simple question. It's deceptively simple. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the person who had spoke was that one. I'm sorry. The person who spoke before me kind of laid it out. Like, it's kind of hard to infiltrate that. If the thing is, there's no singular apex about it. It's decentralized on purpose. There's various degrees of how information is disseminated. Like the real it's like, and it's the nature of television in and of itself. Like, you're not gonna be passively receiving this information. If you sit down, back in the day, the 80s and 90s, before 24-hour TV, right? When 6 o'clock news was like, look, everyone was trying to figure out what was going on in the world, and all that shit was mega filtered, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you were literally, still at that point, literally driving around the country and talking to people and letting people know what it is, that you were only going to get, filtered information. It's the nature of the device. It's a one-way information transfer. What the internet does is it allows two-way, it's not a closed circuit television. You know what I'm saying? You can actually, it's open, and there's a lot of open source. You can, instead of information just receiving it on faith, you can go and, double check, cross refer, the encyclopedic knowledge, at your fingertips, you know what I'm saying? And it's the nature of how, the difference between the 80s and now is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's like the way, it's like, so as far as, geez, I'm kind of getting off track here. The whole apparatus is that the people in CNN, MSNBC, those like the guy said, like, those people they're not going to just go off and just start talking what they might know. They're not going to do that for various reasons. There's all kinds of I just want to say measures in place. Let's say, you know what I'm saying? They're already part of the system. They're not going to go off script. They're vested in staying on script, because they know what the information is going. And so, like, there's various degrees. And then you might have the semi-majors, you know what I'm saying? And then there's companies outside the actual hard establishment, but, you know what I'm saying, they still feed off the mainstream. And so you get down to the people who's trying to tell you what it is about some justice and some fairness and whatnot, and just letting people know what it is, and like, y'all should know what's going on type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Back to the people, you know what I'm saying? It's black people, what we can do instead of worrying about infiltrating them is to try to just have a sense of not being infiltrated. And that's just going back to being aware of our surroundings. Like, it's better to meet people to do that than to even, get information on the internet, or, say it's better to meet someone who knows something about something it is to, if you want to really know something about something, you should go yourself. Ideally, but past that, you should talk to someone who knows something about something. Why don't we? Again, we are by nature, it's hard to, it's difficult. It's not, I don't think it would be, I think it would be a bit vain to try to infiltrate and then get to the point of what are you going to do? Wait 20 years to get on TV to say something, and what, it'll take 5 seconds and cut it off the air, and then they'll delete it, and then unless someone else recorded it before it's ever deleted. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things type thing. Well, what's the information you're going to, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, communications is incredibly important. Who controls the message? You know what I'm saying? Like, it is important to have a cohesive message. You don't want a message that is tampered with. You don't want your intended purity of your dissemination to be corrupted. No one wants that. No one wants to be misunderstood. No one wants to be, you know what I'm saying? No one wants, you know, to give or to receive bad information, unless your intentions are extremely malicious, in which you're consciously just giving out, you know, very, you know, just dull information that isn't forwarding or furthering, you know what I'm saying, a collective purpose. Black people had media in the 90s. And then, you know, the government, you know, slowly, you know, had the media laws that basically Black people had to sell out their radio stations, which a radio is basically what this is, what the internet is, except that it's like radio plus the television, you know, plus the call in to the radio, plus like a 3-way, plus like a 10-way call into the radio. That's what this is. And it's great. Radio in all its purity is one of the best means of communication. It's simple enough. And especially if you can get multiple people on there, you don't have to worry about, you know, the illustrations. Just speaking and listening is a lot more pure than illustrations and, you know what I'm saying, grammatical devices and whatnot. They didn't want Black people to be on the air talking our stuff in our own. That's why, I mean, Black radio, if we can throw back to that, I mean, that would be a way, but naturally it has to be integrated into the internet. And you don't really need radio. I mean, radio is only good if, like, what, you're driving, maybe. I mean, sometimes I listen to the radio when I'm driving or whatnot, because, you know what I'm saying, it's simple. I mean, I don't necessarily need to turn all, you know what I'm saying, all the high tech, serious and all that. Just a simple radio, right? It's so, you know, being able to just capture the attention of the people too, because the whole point is, like, the media will give you a whole bunch of garbage entertainment, and then they'll give you garbage information, and then they'll give you garbage entertainment, and then they'll give you garbage information. It's difficult if there's no way to, like, distract and give, like, a good apple, a good crisp cold apple, instead of, like, you know what I'm saying, artificial apple flavored, you know what I'm saying, something. That's the conundrum, because it's not impossible to break the cycle. It's just knowing how to kind of get the pulse of the people back again. It's not impossible. I mean, sometimes it seems like our people, the masses of Black people, just are going in 50,000 directions, and all it takes is, you know what I'm saying, just an interruption, a blackout, you know what I'm saying, a blackout, all the power goes out, you know what I'm saying, ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying, people gonna talk to each other, you know what I'm saying, that's it. When people come back together, we need some candles, you know what I'm saying, we gotta come together. And it's just the nature of not having all this extra stuff that brings us back to where we are. We go back to connecting again. It's just a matter of not needing the inconvenience brought on by man-made or, you know, natural occurrences that bring us together. It's difficult, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stresses. I mean, I would never discourage people from organizing Black people to, in spite of everything, to resist a lot of the propaganda. I know I spoke a lot, but we have to recognize this is a two-way street. We have to resist infiltration more than so much trying to, and developing our own media again, just getting it, you know, just how it doesn't have to be TV anchor, you know what I'm saying, just getting our own media right, versus, and just instead of trying to get on their TV screens. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm passing my.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that, RBG. Let's sort of Kofi. Kofi, if Whitey can infiltrate U.S. media establishment, why don't we?
I mean, what the Black Steel said is correct. You gotta understand, war is mostly propaganda, you know, than is action, because people will have to be fighting for something. So, you know, so they say politics is bloodless war, right? So, again, it goes to, I mean, everyone is able to be manipulated. Everyone's able to, to do propaganda. But for the instance, for like the case you have right here when it comes to Israel, we always revert back to history. So we have to know the relationship between people. So we know our global relationship with white people it has never been good. Has never been good. Our global relationship with anybody has never been good. So when we're looking at media, we always have to look at it side eye. But when it comes to this two dynamic, we can learn a lot from what's going on with Israel and what's going on in Palestine. So me being a historian and see things through a historical lens, we have to. For those of you who don't know, we know that Jews that are white people, right, went into Zionists are pretty much Jews that wanted a homeland for Jews after after World War II, right? They went into Palestine at that particular time. It was it used to be controlled by the Ottoman Empire, right? But around 1948, Britain owned that area. So they say, hey, look, remember these white converts known as Jews, they're looking for a homeland. They're going to Brazil. They were looking to go to Africa. I believe it was Kenya. I think it was Kenya or Uganda. They were looking to go and say, well, this is our homeland. So what Britain did was basically say, hey, look, remember, they're colonizing that area. So the Arabs and people that are Palestinians that are there and the Muslims that are there right now, they control this. Like, hey, look, this is a pain in the ass trying to establish a colonial base here and a bunch of brown Muslims here and a little bit of Africans here. What if we bring in some Jews here and they establish them right there? So the cover up the whole time since 1948, since Israel became a state under white supremacy, became a state, even though they know that land belongs to Arabs, right? Became a state. And ever since then, U.S. policy, no matter what it is, no matter what president's in there, they're gonna always have to back up Israel. Why? Because we are at war. It puts a very close proximity to Russia. It puts a global proximity geographically to Iran. All these rich countries, all of our enemies, right? So the atrocities and everything that's going on, America has always backed it up. Always backed it up. So what's happening right now is that they give credence to Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. We keep hearing that narrative. But we all know that you guys came over here, you forced yourself onto this land, right? Sounds familiar, right? You've been being backed by colonial powers, sounds familiar, right? And whatever you say has to be the law. We already know what the game is. We saw this movie already, right? The only thing that's changing now is that, like on Black Steel said, everybody is looking. There's independent media now, right? So we now could see things for ourselves. So now on the beloved, helpless Israeli people are being now being exposed as the devils as they always were with the propaganda and saying, well, no, they did all these things. Why? Because even though it has nothing really to do with Black African people, we can learn a lesson from this for far as like how these European powers treat brown people, anyone that's not not white. And so now when it comes to this particular situation, even it's gotten so bad, the white powers that be was like, wow, we can't cover this up no more. We have to do something, to the point where, I mean, congratulations to South Africa. South Africa is like, this is genocide. This is another Nakba. So the Nakba, if you look up what the Nakba is, was when those same Zionists Jews came in and they kicked all the Palestinians out their home and they were killing them and they were massacred. So what's happening right now is a Nakba, right? So we could learn a lesson from wow, a tiger does not change its stripes. When it comes to that's a lesson we need to learn on the global scale. And since this is a black forum, this is a African channel podcast that we're having. If anyone from the diaspora, anyone especially on the continent is listening, this is how they treat their. They'll never be in the wrong. Every time they give you something, they plan to take it away at the same time. And I'll just land my plane right here. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Kofi. With that said, let's hear from Black Steel, who earlier was surprised that she's surprised. What say you, Black Steel?
So something Trigger Happy said in the comments about infiltration implies statecraft. So usually when someone does infiltrates or does something for spy work, it's usually done on behalf of another state. So the Chinese spied on America, the Russians spied on America, Israel has spied on America to get blueprints for weapons and troop movements and things of that nature. So to answer the question as to why African Americans don't infiltrate, who are we infiltrating on behalf of? What nation or what state are we infiltrating on behalf of? Would be my response to that. Number two, this was not an infiltration. This was allowed. I have no doubt that people at the New York Times knew this woman's background. She was let in to spread this type of propaganda because the United States has always, as our brother said before, has always covered up for Israel's crimes. Israel literally attacked a United States ship. Look up the USS Liberty incident. They attacked a United States vessel in international waters and killed 34 U.S. sailors, servicemen. Was Israel sanctioned? Were they invaded? Was there a regime change? No. This is something that's unprecedented in U.S. history, in the history of this country. They got this country by the balls. So there was no infiltration with this particular subject here. This was allowed. This was just like they were spreading the rumor about the 40 beheaded babies. This was something that they've always done. Every accusation by the oppressor is a confession. And we can turn on the news, open our phones, and see children blown apart by U.S. weapons given to Israel, but yet they'll turn around and complain about 40 imaginary babies that were blown up. As they can talk about children being burned and placed in ovens, they drop white phosphorus on Palestinians, which gives chemical burns 3rd degree. So yeah, this is not an infiltration. This is something that was allowed, and they would have let it ride as long as they could have until somebody did the research. They're still talking about those Hamas rapes that they never did. Think about it: an oppressed people who were placed in an open air concentration camp. They get out. They had a goal. It's a military operation. Bring back some hostages so we can negotiate. Do you think they're really going to stop and take time to rape some random hoes? Let's rape these hoes. No, it doesn't make any sense to do that. But then again, you turn around and you understand this is what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank to Palestinian women. This is what the Israelis do when they arrest Palestinian children and put them in indefinite internment in their prisons. So what they're doing is they're just speaking to the things that they're already doing, but then they're turning around and they want to say, "Oh, this is what they're doing." It's all they're just really confessing their crimes when they accuse the Palestinians of doing what they're doing. So, but no, this woman, she knew what it was. She wasn't infiltration. You see, whenever you go online and say something negative about Israel, you're going to start to see a whole bunch of positive things about Israel. They're gonna start spamming your content. They have bots that they set up that search the internet for certain words. And if you speak negatively about Israel, you're gonna get swarmed. They're worse than Beyonce fans, I swear to God. But it's something that they're always trying to control the PR. But now they've gotten so blatant, so violent that they can't control it anymore. The this genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. There's no putting it back in. But yeah, this is to answer the question, you got to have somebody to infiltrate on behalf of to infiltrate. And right now, until we have organization, until we have a African state that's actually in conflict with the West, which at this time does not exist, we're not going to see any level of infiltration. But again, this was not infiltration. This woman was allowed to spread her lies. It probably encouraged as well. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Trigger Happy in the chat agrees with you. He said they probably know her. He said that to you. But Bakari's out there. He said, Coco, we don't infiltrate because we are a lot scared and way too dependent. By the way, I want to shout out the forecast. I saw him in the chat earlier. I don't know if I shouted him out earlier. Shout out to Uwa Bantuam, who's out there. He said hello. With that said, I guess that leaves us to hear from Oni. Oni, what say you to all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I like what everybody else was saying about required statecraft. And you have to have somebody you have to have somebody to infiltrate for. But it is just a wild story. And a lot of us, like I said, this is one of those topics, man. Because like these people do it in plain sight. That's all I can say. They're just doing the worst in plain sight. But another thing I want to point out is that, like, I saw some Google engineer was like, I don't want to work on this technology because it supports genocide. And it's like, it's always been supporting genocide. What are you talking about? I had no idea up until this point that white folk were anti-genocide. You know what I'm saying? like it was just news to that's the biggest news to me. But on another note, the thing I really like, because I didn't know this story was going on. I think when I first came back from Africa, that's when this thing was hopping off, and people were like, "Yo, this is a big story." And I didn't even know what was going on. But the thing I want to say is, these people are the ones practicing the religion that most black people like derivative religions, like most black people are practicing derivative religions from this religion, like this savagery, this, if you really do a little study, because I think Marimba Ani did a good job. Matter of fact, I think Afro Native was a part of that Urugu conversation we had, right? But if you look back at the like this quote unquote Torah or whatever, right? It is really probably one of the original stories, one of the original justifications for like extreme racism and extreme misogyny. This whole idea of, hey man, let's just slaughterhouse them. Let's, they're human animals. They're less than, they're this. Somebody had a story and they were like, hey, what about the human rights, the human rights crisis in the Gaza? And they're like, there's no crisis in the Gaza except for our citizens or whatever, right? The hostages that they are themselves killing off, right? It's like on the one hand you're like, damn, right? On the other hand you're like, okay, I mean, like how like you're like, a lot of black folk are not even on that level of, I don't like white folk. You know what I mean? Like the way how they do not like Palestinians, and generally they probably don't like most people, but the way how they don't like Palestinians is like, that's another level of disdain. And it's like, part of me is wondering, it's surprising, especially given the history, like given the history that we as African people have faced against white folk, and given the history that Palestinians faced against, like Jews faced against Palestinians, which is like pretty much nothing. The level of hatred they have for these Palestinians is leagues beyond the response that we have for for white folk, and that's kind of odd to me. But like I said, if you go back to the and my real takeaway is that this is in the religious books. Like again, I never read these religions, so I can't really say much, and I don't want to say much, right? But I know that Dr. Amos Wilson did a presentation, and he was like, "There's this story of, in the Bible where this guy is like God is instructing, their God is instructing them to take over some city or some shit, some town, and he's like, leave no prisoners." And the guy's like, wait a second, why should we not leave any prisoners? What about the women and children? And it's like, and then their God is like, no, fuck those women and children, right? That's the religion that's fueling this conflict. That's the religion that's fueling this conflict. The religion that says, fuck the women and children. And then today you have 28,000 women and children dead, 35,000 total, right? So I don't know, 75% of the targets are women and children. It's bizarre. It's bizarre that this is the religion that most of us have religions derivative of. This is considered the Old Testament, the old time religion. Some of us would cite the Old Testament. This is, and inside of that Old Testament, because like I said, Amos Wilson wasn't talking about this because it was an interesting story. Because Buddhism is more interesting, Hinduism is more interesting, right? He's talking about it because that's the religious belief that a lot of Black people carry, and you're seeing it in action, and you're saying to yourself, "Yes, this is what I believe in. This is this is the God of the universe. This is the creator of the universe." It's like come on. At some point, you got to wake up and smell the coffee. And I don't want to sound like those white folk, because it's not a good thing to put on YouTube. But some of these white folk be saying 109 countries can't be wrong. But I'm doing it. Anyway.
I appreciate that.
I want
last thought?
I got one.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for Black Steel in particular.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but before I ask that, I would say this: it's interesting that the Jews have taken on ideologies and their philosophies of their former oppressors. That's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because when you look at humanity, FBA has done the same thing. They have taken on the ideologies and philosophies of their former oppressors. FBA sound like what the people who was anti them in the 60s, 60s, 50s, they sound exactly like them. Exactly like them. And the Jews sound like the Nazis. Interesting dynamic. But I want to ask Black Steel, because he has a level of sophistication in terms of Middle Eastern politics and things like that. Does Israel have a right to exist in that area? That's the question I have for you.
No, they don't.
Wow, that's a big statement.
So, and
Okay.
I'm going to be clear. Israel is what is known as a settler colony. Israel is a apartheid state. Israel is a settler colony in the same way Rhodesia was a settler colony. So the same way apartheid South Africa, hell, the same way the United States and Canada are settler colonies. When you invade a country, when you displace the native population, when you, and again, Israel is an apartheid state. When you deny the native population rights, and I believe it was Benjamin Netanyahu, the president of Israel, who said that the right to self-determination belongs to the Jews only in Israel. So this is the president of a country coming out and saying that you don't have the right to have self-determination. You can't determine your rights in this country. That right is restricted to the Jews. So no, Israel does not have the right to exist. And when you look up how Israel came to be, of course, the Balfour Declaration in 19th century is saying basically that the right to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. During the Holocaust, even before the Holocaust, when Jews were fleeing Europe from the Nazis, they came to America, they were turned away. They went to Cuba, they were turned away when Batista was in charge of the country. They went to Brazil, they were turned away. So it seems as though the crimes of the Europeans against Jewish people have now the Palestinians had to pay the price for that. So originally when the Jewish people came to Palestine, they were accepted with open arms. They were allowed to come and settle, and at that point it was okay. But then you had Zionists, and I want to make a distinction between Zionists and Jewish people, because there are some Jewish people who are against what is going on in Gaza. They are against what is happening in the genocide of Palestinians. They do speak against that. But the Zionism, which is a fascist ideology, was a racist ideology. In fact, the United States walked out of the World Conference on Racism in Durban, South Africa, because they refused to call Zionism what it is, which is racism. So no, I believe that Jewish people can live in a nation that is secular, that is not ran by a fascist religious group of psychopaths, probably the worst group of people on earth. No, they don't have a right. Now they have a right to live in peace, but as far as the nation Israel existing, and as it treats not only Palestinians, but as it has how it coordinated with apartheid South Africa, it developed nuclear weapons. It threatens the entire world with its Samson plan, as almost like a gun to the head of the world. No, I don't believe Israel has a right to exist. But I did want to speak on what Oni was saying about in the Bible, and it's a verse talking about the what they call the people of Amalek, and this is something else that the president of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, referred to the Palestinians. We shall do them like they did Amalek, and in the Bible, God instructs King Saul to wipe out the people of Amalek, destroy them, and eliminate them completely. So King Saul didn't eliminate them. He took some people prisoner. He took some of their cattle and their sheep, and because of this, God took the kingdom from Saul and then gave it to David. So here we have the king of Israel, who was more humane than God himself, and then God punished him as a way to give the kingdom to David, who he knew was more bloodthirsty than King Saul. I'm not debating the historicity of this event. I'm just saying that it speaks to the national myths. Bakari, what are you talking about? Palestine is not a state. Palestine is under genocidal attack. There is no Palestine right now. There should be a Palestine. I think that this idea that Palestinians are racist or whatnot, that is an Israeli talking point. Because they want to deflect from their own crimes, how Israel has sterilized Ethiopian Jews, how they have supported all the most oppressive regimes in Africa. But I definitely don't think that Palestine is an apartheid state. You kind of caught me off guard with that. Forgive me for jumbling my words up, but I'll leave it there. I'll stop it.
Black
Thank
Field.
you. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Wasn't there an African population of people? By the way, Bakari is here, so I'll just let him ask, because I think
there's still several groups of Black Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza as well. There's quite a few Black Palestinians that live there.
Okay, so why is it? I had to send this to a friend the other day. Why? Because she's sending me stuff about, and we're good friends, about what Israel is doing to Palestine. Why is it Black people ignore what the Afro-Palestinians complaining about what the people from Palestine do to them, just to focus on Jews? That was not those people that's called Palestinian or whatever the hell they call. Some people lived in that land before them. So everything that we talking about Jews did to them, they did to somebody before them. So why is it okay for them to be there and not okay for the Jews? Now, I don't give a damn about the Jews, but I'm just saying, why is it okay for Palestine? We're concerned about what a Jew.
What are you talking about? Who lived there before the Palestinians? Could you give me a name?
African people did. Black African people did.
What African people are you talking about?
Then Arabs went there and took it, and so now, Arabs went there and did the same thing to African people that Jews doing to them. And now the Palestinians, and I'll send it. Matter of fact, I don't even know how to send it. I'll see if you. Well, I can show you now what Afro-Palestinians is complaining about the double discrimination and oppression that they go through. Yes, they're Afro-Palestinians, but they talk about what the people in Palestine do to them and how they are treated. How is it we, so-called pan-African folks, I guess, or pro-black, how is it we can ignore that just because we have so much disdain for white folk? But the other people that did it to you, we don't have the same type of disdain. I'm gonna say it again. This is part of the reason our neighborhoods can't be communities, because we got people that pushing we should stand up for these other people because white people against them, while these people are against us.
First of all, I want to address what you're talking about. First of all, if I can get a moment just to say this, there's levels to this shit. If I could say, there's nuance to that. I'm not trying to make light of the plight of Afro-Palestinians, because I definitely know there are Afro-Palestinians. I know they may deal with some level of discrimination, segregation, whatnot. But the Palestinians are not dropping bombs on Afro-Palestinians. They're not murdering children like that. That's Israel doing that. And I think it's really weird. We want to deflect from Israel's racism, Israel's war crimes against the Palestinians, to talk about what Palestinians are doing in Africa. I mean, to me, that's such a deflection. When Afro-Palestinians are under attack by Israel too, are they not? Okay, so is Israel not dropping bombs on the Afro-Palestinians right now?
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Did those Arabs drop bombs to take the land?
Wait. Answer my question first, sir, and I'll answer yours. Is Israel dropping bombs?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And watch this. And in the process of the Palestinians getting bombs dropped on them, they take time out of that oppression to oppress the black people. So now, did they drop bombs and do whatever to take the land from the people that was already there?
They probably didn't even have bombs back then.
It don't make a difference. See what you're doing. See, you're talking about deflection. The person that is deflecting is you. It don't make a difference whether it was a bomb or not. It could have been some rocks that they shot with a slingshot. They dropped something on them to take the land from the black people. And now you can still find black people. You can still find black African. Now he's saying what black people? And this is why I don't take too many people serious. Now he's saying what black people?
Because you mentioned some anonymous group of black people that may have inhabited Palestine back during the fucking Stone Age.
So now it's just an anonymous group of black African people that may have it. So you saying the Arabs been there forever?
I mean, can you offer some evidence? Otherwise,
so this is how I'm going to counter black steel. Since it's an anonymous group, and all of a sudden we don't know if black people was there. I don't know if them Arabs was there. Maybe the Jews just want them Arabs off their land. See how easy that can work? If we can ignore what black people did, I can ignore that black people been. I can ignore all of that too. And that is, and you say it's weird to you. That's why I get away from it. Because what happened to those Arabs, in my opinion, does not matter. That's not my business. If we pro-black pan-African, that's where that's why I am. I ain't telling nobody else to do it.
You're short-sighted, and that's all that means. That just means you're short-sighted because you don't have a bigger picture of the worldview. If every black leader from Kwame Ture, Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X understood that what happened with the Palestinians affects all of us, if Dr. Martin Luther King understood that an injustice anywhere is a better justice everywhere, he understood that. That means you just don't get it. It's okay. I mean, we all get to
good. Now do me a favor. Explain what happened to Palestine. How is that affecting you right now? Explain how it's affecting you.
I got more important things to do with my time. Could we go on to the next subject? No, I know. You know what? I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this with you. Go play with somebody.
I'm gonna get off. You don't have to leave because I know. Look,
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just not gonna answer your question because it's a circle jerk. I don't feel like doing it.
Good. I'm glad you ain't gonna answer. But once again, we always want to cape for other people. We always want to cape for other people, then figure out a way to say, How can we prove that the black people was there? How did we know that they took it? How do we don't? So now all of a sudden we can forget the Arab slave trade. We can forget while Malcolm X was doing that and talking about Palestine in the 60s. If you go listen to some of him and Muhammad Ali, they wouldn't even calling themselves Muslim. They were saying Muslim, and Muslim was a derogatory term where black people couldn't even be a Muslim. So if you go listen, I understand what they said. But what happened to those people? They ain't coming over here. They ain't caping for African people. Even the one everybody loved over in Libya. I had to show one of my friends, listen to what he said about the African people over there when they reached out for him for help. Man, these people are for themselves, but for some strange reason, the people at the bottom think they can. It's just that's what's weird to me.
Have always shown support for African people. I mean, they've often shown support for our struggle. I mean, when I was when I was getting tear gas at the George Floyd protests, I distinctly remember Palestinians showing us how to make improvised gas masks. So to answer your question, I'm sorry. Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. I'm gonna answer your question. I said I wasn't going to, but I'm gonna answer it. So the mechanism of repression that is being used on the Palestinians is also being used against African people. Israel exports the technology of repression that they use against the people of Gaza and the West Bank to the rest of the world. So the weapons, the technology, the techniques that are used to oppress the Palestinians are also used to oppress African people and African Americans in this country. Gaza and the West Bank function as an open air laboratory for the technology of repression. Therefore, if our enemies are united against these people, we should be united against our enemies. And to quote Mao, I'm pretty sure, whatever our enemy supports, we oppose. Whatever our enemy opposes, we support. Simple.
Okay, so watch this. Both of them is my enemy. How about that? So now watch this, right? So if you can do all of that, so watch this. You can find an instance where 5 white people stood up for black folks. So that means white people always stood up for us. See, don't throw out those 3 or 4 Palestinian people that may have done something. See, we can mention whoever, any white person you want to name. So that means white people always stood up. What's weird to me is, and the only thing I'm trying to want black folks to understand, stop ignoring what these people are doing to our people over there to cape for them and make like it's okay, while our people is being, they'll tell you it's double. It happened by the Israelis, then it's happened by the Palestinians, and we tend to just forget and say, hey, yo, let's just focus on the Jews. And these people, as far as I'm concerned, they all work together. I'm like Dr. John Henry Clark. And if you don't believe it, Dr. John Henry Clark, you can go back and I can send it. Hey, they're already working together. And I can show you in these countries where the Arabs and the Jews work together, they go against black folk.
Can I add a little something, McCarty? Can I add a little something just to back up your point?
Yeah,
so blacks to understand. That area that we call quote unquote Jerusalem, quote unquote Palestine, quote unquote Iraq, right? All of that is African land. That's called the Levant region. That's called the Levant area, right? I know we're going way back in time, but Marcus Garvey said Africa for the Africans, European for the Europeans. So if we're going to do that, right, we have to, that is our ancestral land. Before the Ottoman Turks got that land, right? The Arabs had that land, and then we had that land first, right? So when we talk about the Asiatics and all these people that came in to North, came in through Egypt, they were there. Those are those Asiatics. So what Bacardi's saying is very true. Let's not play pretend. My thing, it's a human rights thing. Us being African, us being very human. Yes, from a human perspective, our heart break for it. But on an international perspective, if we're going to say what's right, what's right and what's wrong, they are no different. We have to look at them as Africans, how the Native Americans will look at the white man on this land right now. That's how we have to look at them. And it's hypothetical, but let's say if we were in a position of say, hey, look, you know what? Let's say, for argument's sake, that black people got North Africa again. We got Libya, and the person we were talking about on McCartney was on Gaddafi, because people praise Gaddafi, and Gaddafi reached out to Farrakhan, gave Farrakhan a couple $1 million, and Farrakhan took that money and built a mosque in Chicago, but whatever, right? If I would bet money, if we were in control of North Africa, and we was like, you know what? Historically speaking, that is our land. We want to send some people over there, and we want rights to our land, right? You think they're gonna be happy with that? They're gonna say no. They're gonna say no. We gotta understand our Africa's first enemy, and you guys may not like what I'm hearing, but history proves it. Africa's first enemy are the Arabs. If it wasn't for the Arabs decimating, like Buhari said, the sub-Saharan slave trade, if it wasn't for Arabs decimating North Africa like that, we would have had enough people to fight the Europeans. But that's how bad they decimated Africa. So I just want to add that into context. Like, as an African person, when we talk about what's going on in the Middle East, we have to be on, like, we're talking about our first invaders. So I'll just leave it right there.
One of the things I always found curious, because I learned about this, I grew up in the times when the PLO and Arafat and them were kind of heavy in the news. And they used to indoctrinate us with, I don't know if Bono, because he's a little younger than me, I don't know if he'll remember this, but before the world news and stuff would come on, they'll show Palestinian children throwing stones at tanks and all that old shit. And then I came to New York, and one of the things that struck me, I noticed you walk into one of these Arab corner stores, and there's a Jewish dude behind the counter laughing and chatting it up because they're doing business. They're making money, and they're making money off your black ass. Yep. So this is why, personally, I don't get too much in those Arab conflicts. I understand the proximity issue with Israel, as far as Israel and its relations to the continent. And so that's another conversation, but I'm not toting water for Palestinians personally. I want to go to the next topic for tonight. Is there any last words for this topic here?
May I say something? I'm gonna be brief. I when I look at deep history, I'm aware of these KWAZs in their history, right? I'm going to call the Arab a proxy KWAZ. I am convinced that the Arab and what we call the KWAZ Jew are actually the same people, except that this Arab is the one who intermingled with black persons. I will make a statement that this Arab is part of the Latin. If you guys know about Al-Lat and the ancient pre-Islamic gods, Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, Al-Lat. That's Latin. The people who went into Italy, the settlers were called the Latini. I know it's a stretch, but I'm just going to say that the Jew is the Latin people, and those are the Romans. The Romans invaded Africa. I know that we see this Arab, but this Jew is that same person. These Hyksos were the Jews. You understand what I'm saying? The Hyksos were the Jews. They were that KWAZ that came from Turkey and the Caucasus. They were herders, sheep herders. That's them peoples. That's that people's MO.
Jews, brother. The Hyksos on the Jews. During the time of the Hyksos, Jews didn't exist.
But there was a proto-Jew. Those people come from the same area. I will say proto-Jew. And that's incredibly, those people come from that KWAZ region from Turkey. I know that we see Arabs. 80% of the Arabs live in Egypt, right? The Arabs in Algeria are not like storming over into Ghana like that. There's a whole desert. All of them, the Arabs in Egypt are the key to everything. And they're naturally trying to push down the Nile. That's the major pointing push for the Arab. And that's being checked. If the Sudanese had their head assness corrected and just like neutralize themselves against going to the south and actually looked at Egypt and saying, with a little bit more squarishness and a more assertiveness towards Egypt, that's a grand solution. I know I wanted to be brief, but that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I want to say something too, and I could be brief too, Coco. I'm sorry. All I'm saying is this: if I am a humanist like Black Steel, I am a humanist like him. I don't think no person should be genocided. And as the original peoples of the world, other people in the world, we have a issue with other groups of people because they're all of our children. The whole universe is our children. So we have an issue on a humanist perspective for seeing people genocided. But I would say, if the brothers could fall out, let's fall out over our business first. We gotta fall out let's fall out off our Black business first. Our Black business first. And if we must fall out with one another, let it be. Let it be from our Black business first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So if we could fall out, I would say let us fall out over our Black business before other people's business. That's what I would say. But I'll leave it there. Go ahead, Brother Ricard.
I apologize, man. My phone had messed up and I ain't hear you no more, so I thought you had stopped talking. I apologize. No, the only thing I'm saying, Black people never get that. Black people, we never get that same pass from Black people that want to cape for other folks. We never get that same pass, right? So my thing is, they can say a Palestinian came over here and showed them whatever. What happened to the Palestinians can be wrong. But why is it that we're so stuck on other people where we can't admit what they're doing? What they did is wrong, and what they're doing to the African people over there now is wrong. Why do we have to pick up the mantle and fight for everybody? When these people, everybody, Mark Lamont here, my friend, Black Steel, other folks talking about they socialists or they humanists, and Bawana say they our children. They ain't none of my children. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even believe it. But what I'm saying is, right, if you gonna mention these other folks and can't mention what these people are doing to Black folk in their own country, that's a problem. If we gonna say, yeah, we got to help the Palestinians, yeah, we need to stand with Palestine, but we need to make sure the Palestinians stand with the Afro-Palestinians and stop oppressing them. Whole different issue. But when people can see me oppressed, can see the Afro-Palestinians oppressed, and then we just focus on the Arab because of what they have done to the African over there, have pushed them to the bottom because they won the war and took control of the land, then we can figure out a way. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. And I'm not falling out over nothing, Bawana. I just want you to understand. I just want you to know that. But if we can figure out a way to ignore what has happened to Black people, we need to look in the mirror and say, damn, what is our problem? Because we have been under attack by these Arabs since way back, since the beginning of the Ottoman Turks, with the son of, his name was Ethrical Bey, with the son of Ethrical Bey. I can't even remember the guy who started the Ottoman Turk right now off the top of my head, put a tattoo of Africa on his arm because he said God told him the Muslims were supposed to go run Egypt. And ever since then, ever since we made contact with these people, that's what they have been doing. I say it's our fault for not fighting back and not trying to take our ish back, trying to constantly make friends with people who constantly trying to kill you. It's finna happen over here, but there's a whole nother story. I just wanted to finish up on that. As long as we can recognize the African people over there being abused by the Palestinians, but if we can't recognize that, we got a problem.
I appreciate all of you and all of your comments. We're going to end at 11. We're not going to get through 5 topics, but we'll get through 3 of them. I'd like all you guys to stick around for the final prompt here. because I think it's an interesting conversation to have. Should be subject number 3 states, what should be the continental and international language of African people? Give your reasons for why your proposal makes sense and why other proposals make no sense. This came with a link that's taken us to Twitter. It's a post by Baba Dr. Oba Tishaka. He says, what language would be great as a universal Pan-African language? I don't know if this is his list in order or if he's just listing languages, but number 1 is Swahili. Number 2 is Coptic or Kemetic. Number 3, a new African hybrid language. Number 4, Yoruba. Number 5, Igbo. Number 6, Zulu. 7, Amharic. 8, multiple languages. 9, Oromo. 10, a Eurasian language. Well, we know it's not that. And 11 is other. And if it's other, what is it? I think that's an interesting question. I'm pretty sure most people will say Swahili, but I remember listening to actually I spoke to him, Obadle Campbell, and his suggestion would be, for those of us in the West here, his suggestion would be to learn a West African language, Twi, I think he was telling me. So it'll be interesting to hear what you guys think. What would be the more encompassing language for all of us? So I'll start with RBG, Real Black Gentleman. What say you?
Well, I guess, I don't think there would be one language. I would say there might be, I looking at that list for real, you know what I'm saying, I would throw out, I would say like 4, right? Yoruba and Igbo, just on the strength. Those are 2 nice populations there. I'll probably throw in Fulani too, as a language. I don't know if the Fulanis actually speak a language that isn't Arabic, but if they have a native tongue, I would incorporate that too, because there's a lot of Fulani just on the strength. Well, actually, not that. I'll actually take in Swahili on the strength. I already mentioned, like, Swahili can be used as a lens towards North Africa. You know what I'm saying? There's a linguistic lens. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It can be used in the Sahel. You know what I'm saying? You don't need Swahili in South Africa. You know what I'm saying? You need Swahili where, you know what I'm saying, people can, you know what I'm saying, that can kind of be a Creole language in various areas. Throw in the South African, East African language. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, I think you'd be good with that. For real. You don't need too many. One universal language, it's going to be hard. Let's not worry about the whole African speaking one thing. If we can develop some interpreting software, you know what I'm saying, and just, you know what I'm saying, and be able to speak to each other, or get our hands on something. So like, we ain't got to worry about that. That can come in graduations of national and collective of development. You know what I'm saying, as Africa tries, hopefully does not like get too comfortable with these colonial borders. Like, you know what I'm saying, that there has to be radical territorial change about that. That's part of it, just on the strength of Africanness. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that, RBG. Trigger Happy in the chat said to you, the reason why you think it is a problem is because you think West Africa and East Africa are different from each other. I can post another prompt where Obadle Campbell compared Twi and Swahili. He says also regionalism and tribalism should be combated. I don't do West and Central Africa. He does all of Africa. I appreciate that comment there. Brother Bakari, what say you to this? Well, what from that list, what would you choose?
You're Asiatic. No, I choose Swahili. I think it's spoke in more countries than any other language on the continent already. So, but I would choose Swahili. But even though I say that, it's something I learned in my limited Swahili, because I know a little bit because I have friends from Kenya. People from certain parts of Kenya don't understand. They don't, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Uganda, Even though it's Swahili, like I walk up and because my friends from Kenya taught me Imani Iwe Nu. That's one of the things. That's one of the ways to greet. But if I don't meet people from their part of Kenya and I say Imani Iwe Nu, they would tell me I don't know that language like the people tonight. But when I say Wewe Pia is how people respond, they know Wewe Pia, but they didn't know Imani Iwe Nu. But then when I meet people from the area of Kenya who started teaching me Swahili and I say Imani Iwe Nu, they know exactly how to respond. They know exactly what I'm saying. But I would still say Swahili because it's just like a dialect. I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe slang. Like if I can say something being from Mississippi and somebody from New York might not know what the hell I'm talking about. But I would say Swahili.
Appreciate that, brother Bakari. Kofi, the Black Critic, what say you? What language would you choose? Or languages?
I would say Swahili. I'm not that versed or knowledgeable in far as like what is more widely spoken, but from I peeked into this last, it was Swahili, but I would use some type of whatever language that's like a medium for us to use. So we have people like us that are not that fluent in the language. Then you have to think about people who are already fluent in their own ancestral language plus Arabic, or you may have some Africans just speak Arabic. You have to have something in the middle. And I say Swahili would be that middle language because Swahili has adopted a lot of Arab letters and languages, unfortunately, but due to intermingling in history, Swahili, I say, would be a good medium language. So I do agree with the list. My second one would be Yoruba. Now, that's it.
Okay, Yoruba. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think Afro Native World mentioned in the chat a lot of diasporans would probably go with Yoruba. So that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard a conversation in Yoruba in my life. If I'm being honest, I don't think I've ever heard a conversation like that. Black Steel, what say you?
I say all of the above. As long as it's not a European language, we can work with that. As long as it's not a European or Arabic or Asian language, not Chinese or fucking a Hindi or Arabic or English or French or German, we can work with African languages. I think it's possible to have a multilingual state. Hell, we have a multilingual state in the U.S. even though nobody wants to admit it. Hell, South Africa has 11 national languages, and that's including fucking Afrikaans, which is not just a bunch of bullshit, but all of the above is what I would say. As long as it's an African language, I think we can work together and we can teach our young people to be multilingual. Hell, I think we can teach ourselves to be multilingual. So I would say all of the above.
Appreciate that, Black Sid. That's one thing I appreciate. Man, that's one thing I appreciate when I come across like a continental African. Most times they're speaking like five distinct languages. I find that, man, there's something about that so impressive to me. I don't know. Meanwhile, we're out here in the West and we're stuck with, English and stuff like that, or Spanish. It's weird. But in the chat, Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, I want the panelists to understand most African languages are related. Jope and Obenga had a Paleo-African model for a large language family. So speaking one language shouldn't be a problem. And I think, as some of the panelists made that point, I think it'll be cool to learn an African language that can help you become adjusted to other, related or similar African languages. So whatever that is for me, I guess this is my response. Whatever that language would be, and I think Trigger mentioned that Camden was able to show a connection between Swahili and Twi. So whatever the language is that can get me to understanding other Africans, I think that's the one I'm good with. With that said, Oni, what say you?
Okay, so obviously, I mean, like I said, everybody's like it's obviously Swahili, right? Like, I mean, it's just the most widely spoken language there, and the rest of them are ethnic languages. So like if you say new African hybrid language, that's kind of Swahili already, because Swahili was a trade language. It wasn't really any particular tribal language. Like there wasn't like a Swahili people per se. Um, that said, you know, of the top three, Swahili is the only actual language. You know, uh, obviously, you know, Kemetu had a language, but you know, they had a language 3,500 years ago. You know what I mean? We don't know the language. Now, some people could say, hey, well, you know, the Jews, they made Hebrew. Yeah, of course, you can do it. But the point is that, you know, no one knows it. You know what I mean? Like nobody knows it. And the same with this new African hybrid language. Nobody knows it. I actually met a brother in New York. He had nothing to do with like Pan Africanism at all, and he's just handing out this pamphlet. I should reprint it or read it for you guys, but he's handing out this pamphlet where he's like, "I created a new language. You know, hand out this pamphlet for free. You know, make sure more people see this." And it's like, dude, why are you doing this with your life? You know, um, the thing is this, like the thing I don't like about this question, not that I don't like the question, but I don't, right, is that the thing I don't like is that it's just so it's not really realistic, you know. So when I was in Tanzania, you know, we went to Mbeya. Oh, beautiful city, beautiful city. The people in Mbeya, I can't remember the name of their group, their ethnicity, but they do not even like some people don't even speak Swahili in Mbeya. Some people don't even speak Swahili in Tanzania. Okay, they speak their own little ethnic language, and to the point where, you know, the lady I was with didn't even understand what they were saying, right? And that's just the reality of the world. The reality is that, you know, if you're trying to get a universal Pan-African language, um, it's still going to be spoken by a handful of people. So there's two things, there's two things that we got to remember. One, you can learn more than one language. You personally can learn more than one language. If you're going to Ghana, learn Twi. Okay. If you're going to Nigeria, learn Igbo or Yoruba, right? If you're going to South Africa, learn Zulu, right? But if you're trying to talk on an international level, like if we're doing this podcast, unfortunately, we're doing it in English, right? But ideally, in an African future, a lot of good media would be presented in the Swahili language. A lot of good science would be presented in the Swahili language. A lot of good history, culture, a lot of good books would be presented in the Swahili language. That's the ideal circumstance. However, that is not being done. You know, most of us on this panel don't even speak Swahili, right? Even though it's ideally the language, most of us do not create content in Swahili. You know, we create content in English, right? So the only way for this sort of language transformation to happen is so like the only way is if more of us actually engaged in, you know, creating Swahili media. But on the other hand, we also have to take into account that the only language on this list that is actually a national language for well, I don't know if it's the only language, but it seems like it might be. But the only one that is a national language in any of these in any country, I think is Swahili. Maybe Yoruba, Igbo. I'm not sure. I don't know if Zulu is a national language. Maybe it is. I don't know. But on top of that, it's the national language for like 7 freaking countries, and it's a national language in the African Union, and it's a national language, and it's a language in the official language in the African Union, and it's so on and so forth. So basically, the best candidate here is clearly Swahili, and there's probably no logistical way for you to get everybody in Africa or every Black person on the planet to speak Swahili. So really, at this point in time, it really comes about how many people are really making that great content in Swahili. Because I could say this, unfortunate for me, the great content that I plan on making or whatever, you know, the book I'm publishing is in total English. Now, I can get it translated pretty quickly into Swahili, you know, with the help of AI, I guess, right? Or maybe even just like on the app or whatever, right? And it might not be a perfect translation, obviously, but that's pretty much the other thing. And it comes down to it at the end of the day, and I want to just wrap it up because, you know, whatever, right? At the end of the day, what language do you need to know to read Chancellor Williams? What language do you need to know to read Marcus Garvey? What language do you need to know to read Adam Smith, right? Or even like if what language you need to know to read Kemi Seba? What language you need to so on and so forth. We should be actively translating these works into Swahili, right? That way the debate is over. But until we actually get serious into the Swahili content creation, it's really not going to happen. And unfortunately, most of the content's going to come out in English. That's it.
Appreciate that, Oni. Yeah, Trigger. I was asking Trigger in the chat what languages he spoke. I remember him saying some. For some reason, I thought it was like 6 languages, but he just said the one that he speaks. That I guess someone in Twi, someone who speaks Twi, could kind of pick up what he's communicating. So cool for that. Shout out to Anthony McPhail, who's out there. He said he would choose Kiswahili, spoken by nearly 200 million people. Yeah, I think that's what you're gonna hear most tonight. Let's hear what Black Steel. Let's hear what Buana has to say about it.
Yeah, so for me, I am a little bit more practical, in terms of looking at the world that I actually live in. I understand that ideal is the world that you would want to reach to, but I like to live in a world where we try to be as practical as possible. So I would look at which African people am I around, and I would try to understand their language first and foremost. I wouldn't even choose an African language. I would choose the colonial languages that they speak more of. Africa, really and truly, because of colonialism, is they speak French. They speak French. You would have more communication and understanding in French as you would all these other languages. In terms of Kiswahili, French is spoken more than Kiswahili, I think, in Africa. In the Western world, in terms of African people, it would be better to understand Spanish or Portuguese. More Black people in the Western world speak Spanish and Portuguese than they do English. So if you really want to get some understanding in what's going on in the Black world in the West, I would try to understand Portuguese or Spanish. To get a greater connection and understanding, just to start the dialogue. And what I would do, how I learn other languages is there's a torrent that you can download. First, you go on your laptop and you download something called uTorrent. Download uTorrent on your laptop. And when you download uTorrent, after you finish downloading that, go to something called piratebase.com. Piratebase. When you go on piratebase.com, type in something called Pimsleur Spanish, Pimsleur Spanish, Pimsleur Portuguese, Pimsleur French. And all you need to do is download these things on an MP3 on your computer, and 30 minutes a day, you can learn French, you can learn Spanish, you can learn Portuguese, you even can learn Kiswahili if you wish to, on a practical level. It'll be slow, but just, every day for 30 minutes, you'll be able to start to grow to understand the different languages. And then you start going to either Haitian churches, the Black people churches who speak the language outside of French, the African churches and things like that in your community. You could go to their churches and you could start to speak to them in French, in a language where they can understand these kinds of things. Go to the Cuban churches, the Black Cuban churches, where you can dialogue and have a conversation. They feel comfortable with you. They invite you closer towards them because they understand what you're talking about. Download these things, put them on. I mean, it's illegal to do it, but you can do it on your laptop anyway. No, the FBI won't come to your house and try to figure out, well, you download these programs for free. Look up Pimsleur.com. Look up Pimsleur. Pimsleur.com is a language speaking app that teaches you different languages on a practical level. Look it up. Look it up. Spend the time and look it up. 30 minutes a day, and maybe 6 months, you will actually get on a conversational level. You'll be able to speak to someone in another language, and you'll be able to understand them. And you could do it for free if you wish. For free if you wish. Now, if you want to pay, I'm not going to stop you from paying for it. I'm going to stop you from paying for it. You know what I mean? I'm saying you can get it free on the torrent. You know? You get it free on the torrent. It's a $1,500 thing, but you could get it for free. You know what I mean? So they offer you maybe 5 months, definite immersion into the language itself. You practice it for 30 minutes a day. You get some understanding of the language. Then you could speak to your African brothers in the language they understand. They understand French the most. That's the entry point. And then they'll start teaching you their own little pieces of their own little languages from time to time, because they get comfortable with you. They say, well, oh, he understands French. Okay, well, now I can entertain other kinds of conversations with him. This is an entry point. Understand that, unfortunately, our colonial languages is what we have been given. So let's work with that. Let's use that as an entry point to further ingratiate or embrace ourselves with our African brothers on the continent. In terms of the Western world, we can, if we understand Spanish, that opens us up to the Black-speaking Spanish world, like Cuba and all these other countries in South America, Black Colombians, Black Venezuelans, Black Panamanians. These people exist in South Florida. So this is an entry point when you understand their languages, and I'm giving you an easy way, an entry point into entertaining conversations with them. It brings us closest together. That's the start, and then after a while, when you get embedded with understanding their culture, they'll give you more a Kiswahili or their own personal languages in terms of the continent of Africa itself. Me personally, Angola is a Portuguese-speaking country. So is Brazil. 80 million people in Brazil. 80 million Black people in Brazil. So it's important for me to understand that language, because I won't be able to conversate with 80 million people in Brazil. That's a big population, huge population. So I just trying to give the brothers the tools, the instruments to try to get these things under their belt, so they won't be shy to speak to, if they approach to see a Black person from Costa Rica, they could speak to them in Spanish. You know what I mean? And this is just a way of going about that. This is the strategy we use. I don't want to get into these kinds of, let's learn the hard and fast African languages, rather than just approaching the brothers and sisters where they are right now. They understand colonial languages, because colonialism had an effect in these countries. The majority of Africa speaks French. The majority of the Western world, the Black Western world, speaks Spanish. Let's start there first, and then start, in getting involved in other kinds of languages. That's for me. That for me is the approach to the way to go about it. That's the way to go about it in my mind. But I'll stop there.
But I hear you. I feel that approach just ingratiates us more in that in language more than anything. I get it, but while the Africans on the continent, many might speak French, they also speak their own languages too. This idea, we think these folks only speak one language, and it's the same English and French and stuff that we out here speaking. These guys they still carry their own languages, like multiple languages from their region. So, I get what you're saying, but I also want to remind folks that Africans do have language, and what we would want from our people ultimately is to head in that direction and away from the colonizer direction. So I just want to throw it out there. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts here? All right. You know what? I'm going to end it there. I'm going to end it there tonight, because I don't want to go overtime at all. So that was the show for tonight. I would like all the panelists to give a shout out of something positive that they saw in the Black world or that happened to them In fact, as a matter of fact, Afro Native World says, shout out to Costa Rica for still holding their UNIA chapter up and active. So that's one shout out. Let's start with Bakari. What would you like to shout out this week?
Black people. That's what I'm gonna shout out. Black people and black business. Support black business. Hashtag hold your dollar. Hold your dollars. Hold your dollars. Let me say something. Can I say one thing before I go? Look, Bawana said don't fall out over somebody else. Oh no, I ain't falling out over nobody. I wasn't even angry. It's just a little passion. That's all. Don't confuse my passion with anger. I don't even think I used the cuss word. But that's all I want to say. I ain't about to fall out over. I'm not falling out over nothing. But hold your dollar. Hold your dollar. Let's take our neighborhoods back. Hold your dollar.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. Real Black Gentleman, want to shout anything out this week?
Yeah, I'm reading this paper right now. I'm gonna shout out Trigger Happy here. I what do I want to shout out? What do I want to shout out? What's really good? I'll just say it. Beyonce. I guess she's you know what I'm saying, country music, you know what I'm saying, bringing music back to the roots, you know what I'm saying, reclaiming, you know what I'm saying, black folks, you know what I'm saying, heritage, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? I just want to see black people be on top and just, you know what I'm saying, just break through barriers. I'm gonna read this paper, I'm gonna get back to you. Trigger Happy. I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna let you know next week what I think about it. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, RBG. Black Seal, want to shout anything out this week?
I just want to shout out, and I know you said shout out something positive in the black world, but I gotta shout out Haiti right now. They're really going through it. There was a prison break. They're attacking like the presidential palace right now. Haitians, y'all stay strong, man. It's gonna be, it's hard out here. It's hard to see the suffering of the Haitian people. As a person of African descent, I know the Haitian people struck the first blow for our liberation, our freedom in the Western Hemisphere. So, you know, in many ways, they're at the forefront of our liberation movement. So to see what they're going through, that is really heartbreaking to me. So I just want to shout out Haiti, and I hope they come through this intact. So I'll leave it there. And Gary said, I'm not falling out with anybody. I love all y'all, especially Bakari. Love you too, bro. No homo. But pause. All right. Good show tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, real good show. Thanks for your participation. I don't know, Buana bounced, I guess. Kofi bounced too. I want Kofi to shout out his show when he's going live, etc. But you guys make sure to check out Kofi the Black Critic on YouTube as well. Only what you like to shout out this week?
I mean, I don't, you know, this is hard. Nothing much. All I know is I can tell you guys what I'm doing tomorrow. So I was writing about different colonies and stuff, and I came across Kenya. Never knew much about Jomo Kenyatta. So what I'm gonna do is tomorrow I'm gonna read the words of this sister. I can't remember her name, but she was like a veteran of the Mau Mau Revolution, and she had nothing nice to say about Kenyatta. So I wanted to just read her whole story, like her whole interview, and just like dissect it. But beyond that, I just shout out to the people who do research on various nations and publish books and allow us to have an idea about the world. Anyway, thank you. And shout out to you too, man. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody here.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Appreciate all you guys. Buana came back. Buana, what would you like to shout out this week?
I'm sorry, I had to restock my phone, Coco. Yeah. Yeah.
But why don't want to shout out wrong?
My fault. Coco. The reason why I said that they should start with colonial languages, and I know the brothers don't like that, is because English language, French, Spanish are Latin languages. These are languages that have a certain cadence, and they understand the thinking behind that. When you start going into Africa, I want to get them used to. It's a method behind my madness. That's why it's a method behind my madness. That's why I would suggest colonial languages first. But I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it there. For the brothers who've been listening, trust me about it. Look up Pimsleur. It's a good methodology to go through. I know why I'm saying what I'm saying. But needless to say, I just want to say shout out to Koku for the platform. Again, this has been a very good discussion with the brothers. You know, thank you for bringing intellectual dialogue and discussion to the debate. All the brothers who brought intelligent discussions to the debate, I really appreciate that. Lastly, let me just say again, I know that y'all tired of hearing me say this like a broken record, but I have to push it. Revolutionary Matron is doing revolutionary work in what she is doing. She is presenting audio books to the mass public, Black audio books. It needs to be supported. I understand the brothers that may not understand why I am saying that. It needs to be supported. It is very important work. In the future, most Black folks will not use the so-called go to the library and look at and use physical books to as far as information. So the audio books are very important. The fact that she is voicing the books what our scholars would have written in years past is extremely important for the Black world. Do not let that pass you. Invest in that. Whether it's $5, $2, $1. Give her some compensation for her effort and her work. It is revolutionary work. In terms of the future, invest in your future, invest in the future of your children, invest in the future of your community. It's extremely important, the work she is doing. I have to hop on that shit. But thank you, Koku, once again. This has been excellent, and I appreciate the time, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate all of you. You guys, I look forward to Saturday night, to be honest. I look forward to it. So I appreciate everyone who's in the chat, who's on the panel. Kofi, Brother Bakari, is summoning you to his panel, his live streams. So check him out too. You know, and thanks to everyone out in the chat who had so much to say. I see Azuli showed up. I don't know what he's talking about, but he showed up. So shout out to Azuli. Shout out to everyone. We'll be back again next week.
Oh, Koku, one last thing, Koku, before we go. Haiti is a very important topic to discuss. Azuli, could you please come prepared next week to discuss your country and your countrymen and what's going on with that country? That's an extremely important topic right now. And I would really like for you to speak to the brothers and sisters on the ground to find out exactly what's going on so you could present to us and give us some better understanding on what's going on the ground in Haiti. I just wanted to put that out there.
Appreciate that. Also, you know what? Let me put this out there real quick. To the ladies, we don't bite. We don't bite. You know, come on through. There was a time when we had a real good mix of men and women. In fact, we had a real good Pan-African mix at one time too. I'd like to get that back. As I mentioned that, shout out to the number of you who came out tonight. It was a good number of people attending this live show tonight. So I really do appreciate that. I appreciate everyone's comments and stuff like that. Let's get it mixed. Let's get more women. Let's get more continental Africans here because we have good representation. Let's get a British, you know, a Black Briton or whatever, a British African, you know, etc. So let's try to make that happen. Afro Native World said, yeah, Tanzan was great. Azulism says he was talking about Buano with his colonial.
I worry about him. Just do your homework for next week, brother. Please do your homework for next week.
Can I say one thing, Koku? I know you close it. I know you closing,
Yeah.
but let me say this. I want to give a
go ahead.
shout out to the brothers from the continent, Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. It was a wash, like I said it was going to be. One of them is MMA,
goodness,
the
that
other
was
one is a
horrible.
boxer.
That was horrible.
Anthony Joshua destroyed him. But if you go
Destroyed
watch the
him.
post-fight
Destroyed him.
press, if you go watch the post-fight press conference, you see Anthony Joshua come out with Anthony Joshua is Nigerian, but he come out with the Cameroon flag hat on, and he's talking about he's going to be working with Ngannou's organization, and so they can make things better on the continent, so our people don't always have to leave. Want to make things better in the community. So I want to give a shout out to Ngannou, even though he was absolutely destroyed. I want to give a shout out to him, organization and what he's doing, and I want to give a shout out to Anthony Joshua for reaching out to that brother for saying, we can do this. Let's work together to make things better for our people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with that.
All right. I appreciate that. I'll see you guys next week. You guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.